they're pulping it. You're pulping.
When you gotta work through there, instead of you don't spend much time back here, you'll never eat pizza off a cardboard box.
Well, the pie is the pond. I have no idea. Maybe there you go. He's taking out there the pond. Maybe if you close it with the oh, come on.
There's
Some lady. They told me the patient was killing him.
there is a public hearing, but it's not with them. It's on an ordinance. It's on an ordinance. There is a public hearing, but it's not for what township. It's because of
their containment fell off the other day. Oh my
it's not a public hearing.
It's way worse. Right there where we're at.
Well, we got another minute.
Wait,
He runs his first one,
Yeah, he does. You need him to run it?
I guess.
Right on with that.
Okay, I'd like to call the service meeting to order. Can I get a roll call?
Cosgrave is absent foreman. Shelter.
And also in attention of Mayor Ellis, the village administrator, Matt Nyheiser, Brian Bibler, Jeff Fecko, Carl Phillips, Brandon McCreary, and Don. Can I get approval of the minutes?
I move to 1020. I move to approve the 1020 minutes as written.
One second, that. Visitors, any visitors got anything to say?
All in favor?
All in favor, sorry, roll call. Now visitors, we're good? Okay.
There's four.
Okay, 5-year plans on the streets. I mean, we've all kind of been talking
It's for
about this
service
every
safety, the public hearing.
meeting. I don't know. That's really anything strategy down there.
No.
And none of the operators are here to give any updates on it. Matt, do you have any kind of updates on the water treatment plant? Last we knew, we were moving forward on wells and looking for water loss. It looked like you guys were making some headway on water loss.
Yep, making some headway on water loss. Other than just regular maintenance the last 2 weeks, probably the biggest thing is the rotation of wells. With the new wells that we have, well, the current wells that we have, the oil field, the new pumps that came on, they're gonna start rotating those monthly, so as not to overuse or underuse. Still working with V3 about the new well field and looking at loan options for that. Other than that, it's been pretty much just par for the course. One of the things that the water department has really been working on is the service line inspections from the EPA. We've kind of done another round of letters, so there's been a lot of work on that over the last week and a half, 2 weeks.
A lot of people just didn't seem to understand what was needed there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I fully understand it.
Yeah.
But my wife had no idea what they're even asking
Yeah.
about. So
Yeah.
I'd say for the vast majority of homeowners, they don't even know what you want.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to need a little more clarification. for
Okay.
people. Are we, from what I understand, we're currently operating on well 4 and 5.
Yes.
And then December 1st, we're going back on well 3.
Yes.
And then we'll let 4 and 5 rest until what, January 1st?
That'd be my guess. Yeah.
Okay, and then wastewater treatment plant, last we were told we would order to do dates to do the membrane cleaning properly. Do we have a delivery date on those yet?
I know that we do. I don't know them off the top of my head.
It's 3 months out.
3
3
months.
months?
At least 3 months.
I know they clean on the membranes. He was telling me.
Membranes.
Yeah, they got one cleaning up. And they're working on one of the gigs too. So I mean, he's definitely getting some stuff done out there,
Yeah.
for sure.
We're just not really able to do the acid roots properly with it.
Right.
And then I was, when we work with RCAP on I, or what were we working with? RCAP with the wells or on the I?
RCAP is with the wells.
Don't they also do
I think they do.
remediation?
Yeah. We could probably talk to them tomorrow when they're in town.
Cause I don't feel like we have any kind of plan for trying to address the I&I.
Well, we
It's
do,
our biggest problem, and other than dirty water, I&I has been our biggest problem for about 25 years.
we didn't have a meeting with EPA, I think right after the last village council meeting, the next day, we had a meeting with EPA to address to have a 5-year plan. It's for the next permit cycle, but they want to see I&I tackled and they want to see long-term solutions. And so, when we asked what they recommended,
I guess that's what I wanted to do, return to some guidance.
yeah,
So
and
we have a lot of depth of
Yeah.
understanding of it at this thing.
their statement was, we'd rather you give us a plan and then we'll amend it. So it's more of yeah, exactly.
Well, but Eli's actually coming up with a plan.
So,
That's what I was gonna say.
so
I guess that's why I was wondering about
Eli-
LCAP for help on that.
Eli has been working with V3
V3,
and they've been putting together it's a 5-year plan with pricing as well as the dates. That's what EPA wants more than anything from us. Is their statement is you guys do a lot of research.
Yeah, so
And that's-
we do, we work to identify the problem and
Yeah.
all that, but we never actually addressed the
Yeah.
problem.
So Mike Crane from V3, he sent something to Eli last week. Eli did some tweaking on it and asked Crane to go back and tweak some things too. They've got I think a pretty good finalized plan that we're gonna sit down and talk about and then send off to EPA.
Did the meters help us identify what area of town we need to focus on first?
Yeah.
What, do you know the answer?
I don't know the answer. I know the flower shop area was a big issue.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I don't remember the details.
That's what.
But the data from the meters has helped identify the
Yeah.
areas. we need to focus on.
Yep.
Okay. Debbie, you got anything else? Any other questions on any of that? Okay, moving on to village reports, I guess we just kind of did that.
Yeah, we kind of did.
Parks and Recreation Board,
It's kind of the same thing.
anybody, anything new with Parks and Recreation?
Couple things, not completely satisfied with the Nature Stone job that was done. So Tim has been working with the contractor with that to try to either get that remedied or get some price knocked down. I'm not sure what the options are for us. So Tim's been working on that. Also, we met with the Spectrum rep and we are going to move from Frontier phone and Wi-Fi out there to Spectrum. That's going to save us about $600+ a year.
At the pool.
At the pool.
That we were told not that long ago, we
Yeah.
couldn't get Spectrum.
Well,
Right.
that's what we were told years ago, but evidently things have changed.
So the install will be $99.
It took me years to get Spectrum in the store, and it was right there on the pole the whole time. So.
And really
I don't know what they're talking
And really the cost saving is Spectrum will allow us at the end of the pool season to turn it off. And Frontier.
about. So now it would be more practical to have cameras out there, or do we have cameras out
We don't have cameras out there.
there? So with Spectrum though, it would be more logical to have motion sensor cameras.
Well,
out
we
there.
can ask about it, but
He talked about cameras.
Because we have literally had people climb over the fence and swim in the pool. And
they climb over and steal
And
gators.
steal a gator, but I'm just saying, to me, not having a motion sensor camera on the pool is more of a contract. and not having a
Yeah,
fence.
just to give you an idea of what we're looking at. The phone's $39.99 a month. We're currently paying $92 at Frontier.
Right.
Wi-Fi might be, or internet might be a little more than what, but you can cut it off.
Right.
From when the pool's closed,
You couldn't do that.
and we couldn't do that with Frontier except the internet. So
The pool's not covered in the winter. And it does have water in it.
a little bit,
Not enough,
not enough to.
not enough to feasibly drown. You can
Right.
Drown in a 5-gallon bucket.
Oh, they put about a foot
There's a couple feet.
in the deep end where the
Okay, I guess I'd like to look into getting a camera on that thing, because that was not feasible prior to Frontier. If it's feasible, we should definitely do it.
well, we can.
We'll reach out to him.
Okay, so that was it for parks, Baltimore downtown restoration, anything new, Brenda?
So we are still working to try to get those units that we had in some 3 years ago working. One of the things that I would like
Units,
to,
I don't know. What
the HVAC units.
Oh,
The
the.
Mitsubishi
Yeah.
split. So, so we're working on trying to get those fixed and running. Windows, as I've said numerous times, have made a big difference. But one thing we discussed at our most recent board meeting, is the idea of discussing the possibility of HVAC on that third floor. Because we do not have the ability to use that floor in hot summer months, nor in the winter, because there is no
Were
heating.
you guys getting a price from, Nathan on that?
It seems like the units we've had have been a constant kind of, they've been in and out of service quite a few times, it seems like. That's why I think if we're gonna do more on the third floor, maybe we should get price from Air Care.
We've had so many different companies in there, so I
Each
can't
one of
go
them.
through the list.
Yeah, I'd like to, just because I know.
He just lives here in town.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I was good for it.
He's
Air Care?
Air Care. I can't count the times he's come out and found something that was actually silly and
Right.
just kind of said, Rick, you just do this, it's gonna work fine, and he didn't charge.
Yeah.
That's happened like 3 times, which is kind of embarrassing actually for me.
No, I mean, that would be great. I know right now we have a contract for these men coming in, and they had to drain the lines, then they refilled the lines.
I'll send you his information.
These units.
You guys should definitely call him, because he knows his stuff.
Right, so it kind of brings me to, I know that we've discussed the roof, but is that something that we're gonna talk about at the time when we discuss budget?
Yeah. That's a big.
I know, and I just know that that's something that,
Well, did we use all the money that was earmarked for the windows
We budget 25,000 a year.
for 4 years? Which
Well,
we will be on.
it was for 4, but they're gonna do it in
that's
3.
what I'm saying, they're coming up under, so
We're gonna
can we
be-
redirect that money that's gonna be left over for the windows?
My understanding is, our discussion was, if possible, we would like to take the remaining of those funds to replace the front doors because it's like an open door.
Oh, yeah, that's.
The air is,
Definitely.
so that would
That's a
also
really good
increase
idea.
the efficiency.
That's what we look aesthetically, I'm sure. it would get it.
So that's something that we're talking about, but I don't know the proper time.
So we probably can we get a price on the roof, on doing the roof, and maybe try to put it in
I don't know who-
2026 budget?
Because that isn't really.
Tim,
They would make it to 2026, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but that, just so we're clear, that's not really BDRC's
No, that's what I mean. I'm
responsibility, yeah,
saying get
because it's the
prices.
exterior of the building, but I think Tim was up there last.
Tim said the guy said it cost $80,000 to fix the roof.
And I believe last time they were up there, they were pretty shocked and said
And that was just like within the
Right.
last 6 months.
it's in very poor condition, is kind of what my understanding.
That's why the slate was falling off a couple years ago and they had to fix.
So,
Yeah, we'd be.
Well, it's something we're gonna have to get into eventually.
Yeah, we might as well start trying to
I
plan,
just don't know when
set
to,
money aside over the next few budget periods. To try
Discussion
to put the money aside for that.
Yeah, because we can't put the roof.
Right, we have to budget.
right, that's, and that has to happen before we can talk about HVAC and all of that for a third floor because of the leaks and stuff, so.
I think your idea about the doors on the front, because last time I was up there, you can feel the air come through the doors.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy.
Do we know where we're gonna end up on the windows yet, though? To know
Well,
how much money
below
we-
budget, I don't.
I
have the
mean,
final.
The last couple of years, it was just a little over 25,000, 2 years ago.
So we're about 50,000 into it.
We're about
Right.
we're 50,000 into
We're
it.
gonna really be short of that, and we have
I don't know what's-
only 12 windows
I-
we installed in this last installation.
We
But
haven't
if
got,
we were to set aside 25,000 over the subsequent years, we could probably borrow the money to do the roof on like a low rate loan and then get it done and just budget a couple years out.
I mean,
Is that something we're able to get low rate money for?
loans, we can get loans. We can get loans for that. But,
It doesn't sound like it's gonna wait for 5 years to accumulate.
Right,
80,000.
right.
So we might need to borrow it
yeah,
and then pay for it.
Well, we can't, I don't think we wait 5 years on that, it's not that shape.
I mean-
What I would say on this is, see where you're at after the windows, these last 12,
Mhm.
so we got. And then, do we need to get a price? Sounds like we need to get a price on the doors for the front of that, 'cause that's not gonna be cheap.
No,
Right,
no, we know that.
Aesthetically
Yeah.
correct, yeah.
So we probably ought to need to get on that just to see. And then that's something that we'll have to talk about on the roof, because
And then get a price on the roof.
good way to get a price on it.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
So I just want to bring all of these
Gutters,
related
new-
topics.
The flashings and the gutters, things are probably about half the cost.
Yeah, okay.
And then I think once they pull the slates off, it's gonna be a matter of how much structural repair.
Yeah, 'cause we have no idea.
with the quote, you want it quoted slate?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Like,
it's gotta stay the same. This is a historical building. And to remain such.
Yeah.
No.
last one.
Yes, it will.
What is Nathan's last name?
Apple of your eye.
That's where his shop is.
All right. So should we go back to the water treatment plant since Scott just walked in? Because I hate when we come to a meeting and talk.
Yeah.
Scott,
Scott, do you have any?
you moved on, Scott, but we should go back.
Scott, run away.
You don't have to explain. Scott, you don't have to explain.
You guys want me to speak?
Yes, please, yeah,
So, what we were talking about in one of our last meetings was getting a water model done for the city. So it's going to be virtually a virtual interactive map of our water system, service lines, connections, valves, everything that we have on inventory to be put in a virtual system. And what they're going to do is they're going to use it to collect data points to see where we have weak spots, where we don't have good circulation of water, or dead ends. And this is all going to be done to, one, give us an idea of what stress new developments could put on our system,
Yes.
depending on where they're at, and what part of our system we need to address first with changing, with upgrading, changing water mains, valves, anything like that.
Like where the priorities are.
Yeah, it's going to let us know where our priorities are, where we're having trouble at, where we're not circulating water, stress to locate potential leaks, and things like that. So they're going to take all the data we have, all our mapping, all the GIS that we started, and they're going to create their own GIS that we will have permanent access to.
And that's, you asked that question that day too.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have permanent access to it.
It depends on if we can move forward with it. It's gonna, they want to roll into the loan. Our engineer's gonna roll into the loan that we can mark for the wells. So that would be another $100,000, was what they told me, on top of our well project, estimated to be 1.5.
So when I first heard that, I thought it's been $100,000. But I'm telling you, if we had a map, and Steve, you agree with this, a map of every water line and every valve in this village, and we knew where the weakest to the most powerful is. It's a guideline for the future to get to everything fixed. Cause that water line that Tim was in last week down in Washington State.
Yeah.
I texted him, I said, I bet that's 50 years old. He said, try again. It's 88 years old, that water line.
Yeah, and so will that include the age of each line? Because it sounded,
yes.
when I talked to you three, it sounded like anything prior to 1970 should have already been replaced.
Yeah, but that's not true.
And it's not just that things should be replaced. We got a legacy guy, Tim, who's been here longer than pretty much anybody else in the village. We got outdated and inaccurate maps. This is something that's going to be done using GPS coordinates. And it's going to be something to where if we're in the field, we can look at our phones and see where things are at the ground, as opposed to us new guys who haven't been here.
Tim's brain to remember what was
correct. Yeah, he's a great guy, but
he's not going to live forever.
Yeah, and when they got, this is a long, because all this has been let go.
And as well as when we're getting some of these water mains replaced, these systems you can put pictures in of how things were laid, what they look like when they were built in the businesses.
Every time we get a glimpse of one, we can load that
We
picture.
can load
And then we can go back and see what.
yeah, so we can visually see what's in the ground.
If I'm telling you that the water lines over there on Elmwood, the project that we're gonna do in the spring, they haven't been touched in 70-some years.
Oh, yeah, when you see them, you don't really want to have the water because
It's not just that, it's about, as we're moving forward with replacing a lot of these lines, we want to have data on where we should move first. Just based, instead of just saying, okay, these people over here give complaints. But what if there's problems in other sides of town that people don't complain because we're just so used to some of the problems? This will give us actual metrics on what's going on with our water system based on data, as opposed to us just saying this is what we think should happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be an extra $100,000 going into the well loan, which is right now estimated to be 1.5. I'm trying to get some more concrete numbers from our engineers. They said they will probably have those next week.
Yeah, that's what he was saying, yeah. But I feel like that's, when we first started talking about that, I was like, 100 grand. And it's and you brought up the fact that we can have that information forever. And the next generation will have a guideline of what needs to be replaced. Because it all needs replaced. I mean, 10 years old, that one was, he was working on up there. And Mr. Weaver told me that one day.
Have you gotten much feedback from the community on the service lines at all?
Yeah, we got a lot more feedback. We got, this week, my schedule was booked up from start to finish with going inside homes and collecting that data.
Because people mentioned, man, they didn't even have any idea what.
Yeah, I think accompanying our letter with the EPA letter made a lot more people respond than they did to the first time that we sent that letter around. So yeah, we got to a lot more homes this time than we did last time.
And then on the water meters, have you addressed most of the problem meters? Or we're just getting into the regular meters?
We're still getting in. Honestly, I was so busy this week that I only got 1 meter in this week.
And so we're still addressing the meters that we think are not working.
Yeah, we're still getting.
But the ones we think are not working.
We're trying to go. We're trying to go after those. Like, there's homes that I could probably easily get into, but they don't have a problem with the meter.
I was gonna say,
and we're down to the homes.
I've got like 4 of them you can change out tomorrow, but I don't think they're a problem.
They're not
So there's no
problems.
urgency. So if you're still working on those, there's no.
Anything else?
I just wanted to confirm, the letters were sent out to everyone, correct?
Yeah. No, everybody who did not get their service lines inspected.
I did call and give my information to
Okay.
them. I just wanted to make sure.
And we got probably like a stack of maybe 200 papers that we're still getting through to enter into the computer.
I thought maybe they just went out to everyone.
No, we tried just everybody who we didn't have entered into our spreadsheet.
Okay.
So you may have sent a letter in and it just didn't get entered in spreadsheet yet because we still have a pile up until it's entered.
I'm sure it is.
Anybody else have any questions for water?
Thanks, guys.
All right, no problem.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, so we did skip over east side drainage. Is that? Are we done?
I think it's pretty much
Because
done.
we had the utility easement that that Tim was meeting with them, so.
He met with.
No, that's not.
No.
Been finished yet.
It has not. Do we want to leave it on here? We know what needs, I don't think it needs to be on the agenda.
No, it doesn't.
Is there any water in your backyard, Mr. Kim?
No, but the guys on the other end
Yeah, where Brian lives,
Is there,
of the problem.
there's water over by you, but not.
Well, they cleared from my neighbor's property to the field where Tim was getting a hold of that utility company to finish that last little section. Right.
But the big problem over there has been for decades is gone. I haven't been out there. This problem. Leave east side on until we talk to Tim about. Okay.
Water meters we just heard about.
Does that need to be on?
Water meters.
Oh,
No,
that's
really, it's just part of normal business.
it's just part of normal business. So.
Yeah, the water meters.
And then new business, doesn't seem like bonds and service, but, we got an ordinance on to appoint a new prosecutor.
Yes.
Yeah. If it looks familiar, it is familiar because the village recently approved an
We
ordinance
just did that.
we did. And that was to hire Darren Lease. And after he started and after attending a couple of sessions, he was offered a full-time magistrate's position in Franklin County and couldn't turn it down. So he was very apologetic and said, "Oh man, I was enjoying it, working out in the village, but I it's a conflict. I can't do both." And so he recommended, as did our magistrate, recommended the proposed new prosecutor, excuse me, Cassidy Triplett. I've talked to her. She's willing to work on the same terms that Darren signed off on, and that Matt, the previous prosecutor before Darren, signed off on. So, and I've added emergency language to that because we have sessions every 2 weeks. So we need her on board. She showed up voluntarily at the last session just to kind of, get acquainted with the procedures and the staff and everything like that. And, that didn't scare her off, so. So that's what's going on
Need a
with that.
motion to take it to council.
Yeah, we need a sponsor.
I'll move to take ordinance to 2024-44 to council, and I can be the sponsor.
Any second on that?
Yep.
Second, 40 seconds. Okay, then next up, we've got the solicitor. It looks like it's time to renew the contract with Mr. Faco
Excuse
for.
me, when I first saw that, I was like.
You voted both, I assume both you voted yay on
Yeah,
that.
I'm sorry, roll call, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I get a yeah?
Can I get a yay?
And then the solicitor, it looks like it's due up again, to be renewed.
Mhm.
I still have an issue with a couple of years ago when the parks asked for our, support on the grant request. Council was very clear about what they wanted in exchange for that. And at that time, Mr. Faco indicated that he had a conflict of interest and he was aware of that. And I feel like that conflict of interest has kind of been laid bare to me. So I'd like to know why we don't have an annexation agreement with the parks and if we're gonna be able to remedy that.
It's an ongoing project. I'm still addressing it, but I have to be cautious because of that conflict. So I may have to pass the issue off to independent counsel to address it.
For us, it's kind of hard to retract our support after the fact.
Yeah.
Because now they've gotten their grant, they built the park and we're landlocked on State Route 158 on the east side of 158, and that was the whole point. Was to not landlock the village in yet another direction on the state route. And now here we are. So, I mean, I don't know whether it's up to council. I guess we can pass this to council.
Yeah.
Get a motion to pass to council. We'll see how it goes in council.
I'll move to, take ordinance 2024-45. Council, I can be a sponsor on that as well.
Hold on a second. And then,
All in favor?
roll call. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the numbering system, I feel like I'm a broken record on the numbering system. Are we passing? Are we looking for a motion to take this to council? How exactly do we implement the numbering system? I mean, I guess as we annex the main drags like Market Street and Main Street, it seems rather silly to have county numbers and Main Street numbers and not be sequential. It seems like the short-term pain, which I acknowledge there is short-term pain for people having to change their address even though they didn't move, is far surpassed by the long-term gain in that 30 years from now, when you're on Main Street, you're on Main Street, you're not on City Road. So when emergency services are going out Main Street, the numbers don't jump from 900 to 8,000 and in four directions. So I guess that's why when the county says they want us to stick with the county number, and I don't understand why, and I don't understand if we should or shouldn't.
Well, remember they backpedaled from that, the county did. So initially they indicated that they wanted the village to sign an agreement to incorporate the county's residential house numbering system. And I may sound like a broken record because I know I've gone over this before. So I requested copies of their policy, the residential house numbering system, and a sample from one of the other municipalities in the county that they've reached a similar agreement with, because I heard that they reached a similar agreement with the city of Lancaster. Neither could be produced. Nobody seemed to know what where there was any written policy, and nobody could find an agreement with the city of Lancaster. So what ended up happening in that scenario is that the county engineer came back and said, for that, we're not going to require an agreement. If we would ask that the village informally keep in mind when they are adopting a house numbering system that there are emergency services that are, that have to respond, whether it's fire department, the EMTs, that sort of thing. And they stress that it can get real confusing if part of the addresses are, for example, 100 North Main Street, and then they jump to 1500 Baltimore Kirkersville Road, and then they go back to 200 North Main Street as they're heading north, for example. And my recollection is that committee was going to come up with a house numbering system and have me prepare an ordinance on that. Maybe I misunderstood that. I mean, I could come up with an ordinance, but what do you want the ordinance to say as far as a house numbering system?
Well, it's already getting complicated because I know if you go east on Market Street, you've got the Norrises that won't annex. So they are literally in the township. And across the street, you have Jamie Carroll, who is in town. And so I don't know how you address that when you have people on one side of the street that are out of town and one side of the street that are in town. But when you're giving these new houses, new numbers, you hate to give them the county number and then change it a year from now. So I would think as we assign new house numbers, we should assign them with the village numbering system. And that we can't really fix the people who don't annex or that already are there until we annex them. And then at that time, when they do annex, I think that those existing properties should be converted to the village numbering system.
What do you think about that, Chief?
I think if you live in the village, it should be the village numbering system.
So the fact that one side of the street's in, one side of the street's out, we can't really fix
Can't do anything about it.
immediately, but it's
That's
going to fix itself
specific.
eventually.
And it's always a hassle when we get dispatched out there because of that. Because
It's already a
they always,
problem.
they always think it's in the village, and it's like, so the county goes there, but people think, what's the county in the village? It's like, well, that particular house is not in the village, and so I agree, those problems are something you can't fix, but
Well, and eastbound, it gets even worse because when you hit the township line, it
that
starts
changes
over
again.
anyway.
Yeah, it changes.
It's
again.
already a whole nother problem because if you go east on Holder Road, you expect 10 Holder Road to be right there at Market Street. And then you get all the way to the township line to my old house and it's 10 Holder Road.
Yeah.
And so if that were to pick up it's in town now. So if it were to change to the village numbering system, it would no longer be 10 Holder Road. It would count for Market Street.
Yeah.
Which would actually
So
save trouble.
So maybe the ordinance would be, if you're in the village,
Yeah, they just moved in there. It'd be a good time to change their address.
if you're in the village, your house numbering, the house numbering will be
Sequential to the village.
to the village or something to that
I know
effect.
that I'm not in this, but I would
Well,
agree. You're
I
really-
was saying, if you are in the village or new properties in the village.
Well, I would say,
You're in the village, it seems to be.
my view would be, because yes, it would be super confusing, as Jeff said, to go,
So change.
When 10 Holder Road annexed into the village, it should have gotten a village address. And it should have no longer had its county address.
and if there's roads like that are in, again, it's a hassle, we've all moved it sometime and had that change, but it's not the end of the world, and if you have to change, you have to change, but it doesn't work. It's very confusing for emergency services to go to, and Amazon and every delivery service to go to be like, say, you go from, 600, and then you go to the 8,000 block is just north of town.
If you don't do it in conjunction with annexation, what on earth would you do?
No, I think you should,
Yeah,
yeah.
we need that, yeah. It needs to be done.
So what is it that you guys have to do to give it to FAPAT to change that?
He needs to write an ordinance that has at all properties that are annexed in the village, use the village number.
Just for clarification, if you were going out east and you were skipping a house, are you reserving that number for the house that's not annexed?
You always do that.
That's how they do it, yeah.
Always gaps
Yeah.
based on distance.
Yeah. Because even Holder Road, we're on my side of every 10.
Right, but if you're.
If you skip 3 lots, you're gonna skip those numbers.
Yeah.
Definitely. You always do, it's based more on distance than it is sequential numbers.
And no retroactivity with regard to that numbering system. You mentioned 10 Holder Road. And the reason I raise that is because in the rare occasions where the county requires a property owner to change their address, there's a lot of resistance typically is what they see. And so they a lot of times give the property owner plenty of advance notice. Okay, you've got 1 year to update all of your records, whether it's with your relatives, whether it's with your creditors, whether it's with your mortgage companies, whoever it happens to be, but your address is going to change. So it doesn't happen often, but there's typically a lot of resistance.
Yeah, I guess that's why I'm saying is the problem gets exponentially worse as you annex more and more property.
So I think, I think your question was, are we going retroactive? And I think the answer is yes, is what they want to do, yeah.
It makes more sense too from my standpoint.
Well, if it's from your standpoint, it's probably from the fire department.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, so say somebody's already in the village and now we annex property beyond that. We can't skip over those ones in between because now we exacerbate the problem.
Right.
Again, you'll go from 700 to 8,900 to 300.
Yeah, I'm not saying we won't get resistance. I'm sure that we would.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
But they certainly should have to
Well,
at least think about it and
You
see.
can't hold the road when there's a problem already because you get things delivered to the wrong. Yeah. They just do.
Of course, that's a township piece where
It's
we
a
can't
township thing,
fix.
it's a county thing, but yeah, the problem is gonna get worse on Market Street headed east here very quickly.
Yes, it's.
And why don't I do this? I'll come up with a draft policy, bring it back to committee for committee review. How's that?
So we don't need a motion at this time because you don't have the ordinance yet. So I think we can move on from that because we're on our clock, I think. Yes.
You said Norris is in Walnut Township?
No, I didn't say they were in Warren Township.
Oh, okay.
They're not in town.
They're not in town.
And they refuse to annex. No, they're not in Warren, they're in Liberty, but they are also not annexing and not planning.
The next question, the one time came up. Before, here were, I can't say it, Kevin, or the junkyard.
Yeah.
He was 145 Baltimore Somerset Road Northwest.
Because he was counting this
in
one.
Liberty.
He was in Liberty.
I'm 145 Baltimore Somerset Road Northeast. It was a hell of a problem. Now I'm getting some mail that's just like occupant, 145 Northwest. I would wonder if his address has been changed to something on Market Street. I thought it had been. And
It's
that's
been annexed now, but we didn't change it, so it shouldn't have changed.
But I wondered what his address, if you find out what his address was, because if it's Market Street, it was Baltimore Somerset Road.
I'll have to check on that.
Yep, I'll make a note.
He's annexed now, yeah.
And he was annexed.
The only thing that's annexed now was skipped over originally because the old man was, didn't want to mess with an old man who was on his deathbed, but yeah, it's been annexed since then. Yeah.
And northeast.
We're gonna have to move on.
Oh, I know.
And
Oh, I know, but if you started counting from Market Street, that probably goes away.
there's not much to do.
Okay, moving on. Next meeting will be held, on, I believe we're gonna cancel the 27th.
Yes, we are.
So we're gonna do that at council.
Yeah.
The next meeting will be January 27th, 6 p.m. Can I get a motion to adjourn? For a second.
Okay, call this order for safety. Everybody's here except Wayne Cosgrave. We got a couple visitors. And gonna get approval of the minutes.
I make a motion to approve minutes of 2/28 of the 6 minutes.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Visitors. Everybody's saying, thank you. 2 workplace accidents. We got 1. 0 fatal accidents. 0 village administrator report, please.
Village administrator report. I don't have anything in addition to share until old business.
How about the police report?
So the installation went well in the office down there. Just needs the gas line run. Electrical's done there. It should be working tomorrow. And it's already made a difference, just installation in the building. So that's all working well. And I did hire one SRO. Good. I had an interview today. I've got another one scheduled here good Wednesday.
Good.
It's about pardon me?
North Street westbound business table. Number 2, building department.
Sure. This is our ongoing effort to the staff, either by hiring or through contractual services. I'd sent out late last week a professional services agreement with Safe Built. I also included in that email current fee structure for the certified building department, as well as the suggested. This is something Safe Built recommended in regards to what they would be able to do this kind of work for. The fee structure that they gave to us was one that another community had adopted, and they said that some of our prices hadn't been updated, and then some of our fee structure, there were things that were missing from it, so it's more robust as well as updated. My recommendation is that we go ahead and pull the trigger on this, and this is something we haven't been submitting reports for years to this Department of Building Standards. This is something that they really want to see us do, and I think with upcoming building that's going to come down our way, having somebody that can handle site plans and review and inspections is going to be absolutely, in my opinion, is going to be very important to make sure that we're getting buildings that are.
So we'll take that and move it to council. Good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
plan
let's-
review prior to construction.
Yes.
Because that seems to be, people just need direction.
Well, and I think
There's lack of it right now.
and one of the great things about this company, and I think I showed this last time, is 95% of it's done electronically. So they go onto our website, they click on it, they have a list of things that they need, and they can submit those electronically, and then they can electronically track to where they are in the process. So on our end, with not having the staffing, I mean, it would be something that would streamline our efforts as well.
What about the fee
And
structure?
the fees are just passed. We're not making anything for the building department, but we're getting quality control, and that fee's just going right to the company.
In reviewing the documentation that you're providing, we have obviously not updated
Sure.
the structure in a very long time. So when would that take place? Immediately, when would that be implemented?
Well, if council voted on it,
2025?
that'd be for 2025.
Would that have to be an ordinance?
They would have to be an ordinance.
I'm in favor of
I only got one more meeting.
I'm in favor of that. So does this just need to be, they can take it?
Yeah, the authority to sign the contract and then update the fee structure.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion. That we move this up to council and I'll sponsor.
Favor?
Aye.
Right. All right. No new business. Next meeting is gonna be January 27th at 6:30, immediately following the service committee. Yes.
Oh, by the way, Kevin Kim's address is 627 East Market.
How's that happen?
Well, Jamie's is 625
That was a new one. The other one wasn't a new one.
and his is 627 for the author. So there you go. What?
Be a similar situation, wouldn't it?
100%. You need 65 Lancaster Kirksville. How weird.
See how confusing that is?
What did you get through that?
You're
Well, there was so much on there, I didn't think it'd make it.
we're still live.
Turn on until.
No, that has nothing to do with you. That's over here. Hello, Rick.
Do we have flash, do we have extra flash drive?
In the back.
Alright, so which,
Okay.
Okay, we have a real quick, 10-minute public hearing about something, about a zoning code that has nothing to do with why you all are here. So we're gonna do that. It's gonna be from now until 7 o'clock. Can I get a call to order?
Cosgray's absent. Foreman. Here. McCreary. Phillips.
Here.
Reedy. Schaffner.
Good. The agenda. Chapter
23 VOB.
1236.07, planning and zoning code, non-conforming uses and damaged construction. This is mostly about the property over on Monroe Street. The gentleman that owns that, in order to refinance it, we have to change the code. We're just having a hearing to see if anybody is for or against it. I guess, is there any visitors that want to speak on that topic? Nope. Okay, well, is there any discussion with the council that you'd like to discuss that? Because we all talked about it before.
It's still on the agenda. It's
Right.
just tabled, so.
Yeah. So we can just move it up to council and.
Yeah. If there's nothing else to do.
Yep, if there's nothing else to do, we will adjourn this meeting. Well, I guess we do have to wait till 7 o'clock. No. All right, there's nobody here to speak for it or against, so we'll just adjourn this thing. Somebody to. 4 seconds. Okay, perfect. All in favor? Anybody that would like to speak at the council meeting, which we have about 1 minute. Kind enough to sign in. No.
Stupid, I had it. Good thing he did.
Yeah. And
My phone on my.
Oh.
Because.
Mine does it right now.
Oh my gosh. Pretty Jeff. Did you get it?
Yes, I got it. I got it.
Rick, if you don't care, why don't you tell us where you're at and then I'll hang on. Yeah. Okay.
When we get through all the beginning of everything, we will talk about that. And yeah, that's perfect. Because then Jeff's gonna intervene there somewhere too, so.
However you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right there. Right there.
Good.
No, I got on my calendar.
Good to see you. Yes. Sorry. Thanks for your help tonight. I appreciate it.
I wish there was Yeah, you can. Yeah, that's fine. Well, we're gonna, yeah.
Does that work?
Yes, absolutely. All of my cousins are all right with that. Oh, that's what we tell them. That's what I say.
One of the few that is not on that tree. No bridge.
The recording is
That
paused.
written-
Until I forgot to click restart recording. Oh, yeah, 6:58. I'll go ahead and start the video again. I just got.
I know, he never stops. Planning commission the other night, I don't know if I told you, I forgot to tell you. Oh, guys, I was here the next day. When I did something.
Yeah, it recorded twice.
For him, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brian, can I get a roll call, please?
Cosgrave's absent. Foreman,
Present.
McCreary, Phillips, Reedy.
Okay. If I could get somebody to, I'd like to get the minutes from the.
Or makes a motion to approve the minutes as written.
3 seconds.
I get a roll call, please?
Foreman,
Yes.
Reedy,
Yes.
Schaffner,
Yes.
McCreary,
Yes.
and Phillips.
Yes. Okay, so we're gonna approve of the agenda tonight. Roll call on that, please.
Foreman.
Yes.
And McCreary,
Yes.
Schaffner.
Yes.
And Phillips.
Yes.
Reedy.
Yes.
Okay, so the reason that we're all in this room together is because of the conversations that we've had, or that some of us have had with the township trustees. We want to be, for lack of a better word, good neighbors and good partners with everything that's coming down the pike and sharing some of the stuff that's going to happen. Mr. Fix is here. He's going to talk about the operation through some of that first. And then after that, I'd like to hear from the trustees and just about, because you have a couple things going on that not a lot of people know about, that we would like to hear and see what your thoughts are and see if we can all work together on it. So, with that, Mr. Fitz, if you want to come up and speak first.
Yeah, thank you for having me tonight. I need the word.
You're on?
No?
Oh, probably needs new batteries.
When you all can hear me. So, you can
Over there.
yep, hit the
What am I hitting?
bottom down towards the plus minus, bottom right.
Bottom right.
Bottom right. Go to your left a little bit. Little screen. Go to that little screen thing. Where's the left to minus? There you go. On that. There now. When I ask you to advance the slide, I think all you need to do is click on your mouse and should be good to go.
Yep.
So thank you all for having me tonight. My name's Jeff Fix, County Commissioner. As you guys know, I've been before you in the past, as well as the Newbury Township folks. I've been working on the Fairfield County for the past couple of years, and so we went around and talked about the growth that's coming and talked about what we need to do to prepare for it, and talked about working on land use plans and zoning and things like that, and then we worked on our comprehensive land use plan for the county with a lot of input from all you folks in every township and every village. And we produced that, and some folks are using that to update their or create their own land use plan. Thank you. And then we, regional planning commission, created model zoning, right? And the idea behind that was it was in line with our land use plan, and that model zoning could be used by any township or any village. So now we're at the point where townships and villages are reaching out and asking for help implementing those things. We're working with several, I think 6 different groups now of townships and villages that we're working to create partnerships. And that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about tonight. The idea of handling growth comes down to planning for it, managing it, and taking advantage of it. If you could go to the next slide, please. So growth is coming and we can't stop it. We've had that conversation, and if there's anybody who is still in doubt, I encourage you to go to the One Columbus website or the BIA industry website. At a press conference last week, who runs One Columbus. Their focus is economic development, and he's going around telling everybody economic development won't work if there's not enough houses for people to live in, right? We're creating all these jobs, but there's nowhere for folks who are going to fill those jobs. There's really no reasonable place for them to go and live. Growth is coming. We can't stop it. We can use growth to eradicate poverty. And when you go around Fairfield County, some folks think that they've got poverty in their backyard and others don't. And so the measurement that I use is looking at what the percentage of kids in your school district that are on free or reduced lunch program. In the Baltimore, Liberty Union, Thurston local schools, 30% of the kids are on free or reduced lunch. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's in poverty, but it means we could do better, right? Better paying jobs, local jobs can help us change the economic trajectory of families in Fairfield County. Oh, and here in Baltimore. Sorry, I forgot to change that from my presentation the other night. We can use growth to preserve the land. And that was a big point that most of the townships made and some of the villages, that we need to preserve our farmland, right? And so building with density, rather than building a one home for every 2 acres, you can allow for this growth to happen and not use up all of our farmland. The example I've always used is if you want to build 100 homes and you do it on one home for every 2 acres, you're going to use 200 acres of land. It's easy math. If you build that same 100 homes, 4 homes per acre, you use 25 acres, right? Saving 175 acres of farmland. And we can use growth to protect the taxpayers, right? We're going to get into that a lot more, but the premise of everything that we've been talking about for the past 2 years is preserving the land and protecting the taxpayers. Next slide, please. So I think you might have skipped one. Yeah, growth is coming to Fairfield County. There's the Columbus effect, right? Columbus is pushing out. I've said this statistic for quite a while. Every day, an average of 67 new people are moving into Central Ohio every day. That may have increased since Intel was announced. The Intel effect is real. They are already calling our economic development department looking for places to put their suppliers, right? They want their suppliers between 25 and 55 minutes away. The northern part of our county, Liberty Township, 25 minutes away. The very southern part of our county is just over an hour away from Intel. So Intel is going to be looking at Fairfield County to build, to have their suppliers available. They're also going to look to Fairfield County for their employees. They expect that their employees are willing to drive up to an hour to get to work. Again, the northern part of our county is 25 minutes away. Southern part's 55 minutes away. So they will look to Fairfield County for both businesses and for residential development. Then we have our own growth, right? Pickerington continues to push out, approaching the borders of Liberty Township, and that growth is not going to subside. Pickerington and Violet Township are going to continue to push out. It's going to come your way. Next slide, please. So I know that, from having conversations all around the county, people do not want to get overrun by growth. They do not want to get stuck with the bills for it. And they don't want to have all the quote unquote bad things that come with growth, right? And you all have your own definition of what that looks like. But what we need to do is manage the pace of growth, keep your sense of community, and make development, and the new people or businesses pay their own way. Next slide, please. So this is how we take advantage of the growth that's coming our way. You plan for it with an updated land use plan. You decide what goes where. With updated zoning, right? You get to decide what your standards are. And with cooperative agreements between Liberty Township and Baltimore. And with those cooperative agreements, you can have the development pay for itself and then some. So once you plan for it, then, and growth starts to happen, then you got to manage it, right? And by updating your land use plan, your zoning to that plan, you'll have dictated what goes where, what standard. And any landowner that wants to deviate from that plan or annex into the village will need to appear before one of your zoning commissions, either the townships or the villages, and eventually in front of village council or the board of township trustees. And with those key things, you have the keys to manage your own growth. Next slide, please. Finally, you can take advantage of it by partnering. A cooperative economic development agreement, you all have heard the term CETA, will define the terms of a financial relationship between Baltimore and Liberty Township. It defines the geographic area covered by the mutual agreement, the tools that will be used, and the structure of the partnership between the township and village. And it also defines the terms of a new community authority, NCA. And that's the most important thing we're going to talk about tonight is the NCA. Next slide, please. The NCA allows you to create a separate taxing district that will charge new residents or businesses a higher tax rate, having them pay for the infrastructure and ongoing operational needs that they create by moving in, right? So it's not raising taxes on your existing tax base. It's a new tax base in a new neighborhood or for a new industrial development. Creating an NCA in partnership between the township and village will allow both to collect new taxes on developments that occur both within the village and areas of the township that cannot or will not be annexed. In our proposal, an additional 5 mills of property tax and 2 points of income tax are added to the established tax base for any new development. These revenues on land that's developed anywhere within the agreed upon map are shared between the township, the village, importantly, the schools, and the NCA area itself. Next slide, please. So this is an example, and it's just one example, and we've got a spreadsheet that you guys can get your hands on and rejigger it any way you want. But in this example, over the next 14 years, if you build only 200 single-family homes, taking up 40 acres, and build only 160 units of patio homes or multifamily housing, taking up 50 acres, build 4 retail commercial centers, restaurants, strip malls, things like that, using 10 acres, and build 1 industrial complex using 25 acres. If you did only those things in the next 14 years, the new community authority, with that 5 mills of property tax and 2 points of income tax, would generate an estimated $1.16 million every year, using only 125 acres of land. Next slide, please. If you take that $1.16 million generated by the NCA and say 40% to the village, 40% to the township, 10% to the schools, and 10% back to the NCA, you see the numbers there. Almost $500,000 to the village and township, and over $100,000 a year to the schools and back into the NCA for improvements. And that's every year. Next slide, please. More realistically, if you double those numbers, right? If you built 400 units of single-family housing, taking up 80 acres over the next 14 years, you build 320 units of patio homes or multifamily housing, 100 acres, 8 retail commercial centers using 20 acres, and 2 industrial complexes using 25 acres. If you did only those things in the next 14 years, the new community authority would generate annually $2.3 million using only 250 acres of land. Next slide, please. So that total revenue comes to almost $1 million for the village, almost $1 million for the township, $232,000 every year for the schools, and $230,000 every year to be put back into the NCA area every single year. Next slide, please. And this is, kind of silly and simple, but what could the village do with $1 million in incremental revenue every year? What could the township do with $1 million in incremental revenue every year? Next slide, please, is the answer. Not raise taxes ever, right? The idea of not ever having to go back to ask for money for your streets or your water or your fire department or your schools, I would think would be pretty appealing to everybody. Next slide, please. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the schools because that question comes up every time. And this is a chart, not one that I've created, but created by the NAHB. And I'm not sure exactly what that is, but that's the data that our group, thank you, that's the group that we used when we were putting together our land use plan, our comprehensive plan. So you can see in a new construction, single family detached, 0.411 kids per house. And for multifamily, 0.019, I'm sorry, all multifamily new construction, 0.019. All right, next slide, please. So those single family houses that we talked about over those 14 years would generate 165 new students, and the multifamily houses over the 14 years would generate 7 new students. It's a total of 172 new students, averaging 12 per year over the 14 years. The total revenue generated by the NCA for the school in the 14th year is $255,600, which means there's an average annual revenue from the NCA of $18,257 per student. And with that, I came to the conclusion, I would hope you would too, that $18,257, the schools will be fine. The way we've looked at this is we've said that the residential development that generates the new kids, that NCA money would be used for operational expenses, more teachers, more textbooks, all that stuff. And that the money generated by the commercial and industrial that don't generate any new kids, that money could be used for their capital expenses, right? Building new schoolrooms, building a smaller new school, things like that. Next slide, please. So these are only estimates, and these are our estimates, and they're actually incredibly conservative. So how you guys choose to grow will depend largely on the market. Right? If the market says we're not interested in Baltimore or Liberty Township, you do, your desire to grow or not will impact how and when this area is developed. Developers are looking for what they call a surety of execution, right? They want to know the rules. They want to know what their investment's going to be. They want to know that they're stable governments that are going to stand by their rules, which means the zoning and the land use plan. And if with that, they'll decide if they want to invest their money here. You can run these numbers and we'll get to the spreadsheet and you can figure out what mix of single family housing and multifamily housing and industrial and commercial, and you can do all that. There's some very basic assumptions in all of those that you can play with the assumptions as well and create your own numbers. And with that, you'll be able to tell what you can generate. Now, I can tell you that when you look over the next 30 years, pretty conservative numbers. We're talking about roughly $100 million, right? That would be generated by all four of these over the next 30 years. $100 million goes a long way to pay the bills, right? Next slide, please. Why would you want to create a partnership? There are growth opportunities that makes complete sense to annex into the village. They're likely more residential and commercial. There are other growth opportunities that the village will never get to, or they will not be able to find a path for annexation, which is likely more industrial, right? Like we talked about the northern border. Creating a partnership between the village and township allows both entities to share the financial gains no matter where the development occurs within the ceded territory, which is a map that you all would agree to through the process. Creating a partnership also prevents a developer from playing the township against the village or vice versa to get a better deal. We all know developers like to get the best deal they can, and they're going to come to Baltimore and say, well, the township will give us this. And Baltimore will say, okay, well, we can do that, and we can give you just a little bit more. And then they'll go back to the township and say, well, Baltimore's giving us this. What can you do, right? They'll play that game until it's all played out, and then somebody's going to be a winner and somebody's going to be a loser. Generally, the losers are the taxpayers when you do that. Next slide, please. In summary, growth is coming and we can't stop it. We can plan for it, manage it, and take advantage of it. We can preserve the land, we can protect the taxpayers, and we can set up our community, the village, the township, the schools, for long-term financial stability by partnering in a CETA and an NCA. Next slide, please. If you want to do these things, you'll need to agree to a CETA, and we can march you through that, right? We've been doing this now with the city of Lancaster and Greenfield Township. We've been doing it with the village of Thurston and Walnut Township, the village of Millersport and Walnut Township. Pleasant Township is ready to go to do the same kind of NCA that Lancaster and Greenfield are doing, and Hocking Township is next in line behind them. We also have made presentations to the village of Bremen, to Sugar Grove, and a couple, we're going to someplace else next week. It escapes me, but we're having this discussion all around the county, and we are excited about the idea of those different partnerships coming into shape so that everybody can share the wealth. So if you want to do these things, agree to a CETA, agree to the NCA. We'll work through those with you, update your land use plans. So you say what goes where, update your zoning codes. Again, you can use ours if you want to. You don't have to, you can create your own. But ours is available and it's free. It's not free, it's paid for by the county commissioners, but it's free to you. I would say, once you've done those things, let our economic development team, Anthony Ikini's here tonight from our economic development team, let them know what you want and they'll help you find it. And when those folks come knocking on your door, let our team help you, right? I'm not an expert in economic development. I don't know that there's anybody in this room that is other than that guy in the corner, and that's his job. And we've got a whole team behind him that will help you make sure that you're not taken advantage of by the developers and that you're getting the best deal you can for your taxpayers. Next slide, please. It's me. You can call me, you can email me, you can text me. Happy to answer any questions now or whenever you have them.
I got a question. Have you made the same presentation to the school district here in Baltimore?
We invited Mr. Johnson, I believe is the superintendent, correct?
Yeah.
Invited him into our conversations early with Thurston and Walnut Township. and, he had a little, I don't want to say this, when he learned that there was some friction going on between you and Thurston, he wanted nothing to do with any of it.
Yeah, oh, there's no friction.
When he learned what he perceived to be friction between you and Thurston, he said he didn't want any part of it. We will be making this kind of presentation to the school districts as we get closer. Lancaster Schools has been in parts of the conversations on our CETA with the city of Lancaster and Greenfield. We need to have this conversation with William Carroll Schools. We have had parts of the conversation with Millersport Schools, so that it's all part of the process.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
The only thing that's, you know, we have a development that possibly could come here. It's probably going to come here, and they're doing an NCA on it. And how we did the split was a 40 with us, 40 with the township, 10 with the schools, and 10 with the fire department.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't know if other villages do that. Or fire department.
Your fire department's a little bit unique because it's its own governmental entity, and every other fire department in the county is run by the township. Yep. So yours is a little unique. We found that we thought that putting 10% back into the NCA was a positive thing for the NCA and gave the developer the incentive that they needed to participate. But you can split it up any way you see fit.
I'm curious about your number of kids per house. Because I just looked up like from the U.S. Census, the Population Education Department, and the statistics. They're all at like 1.7 to 1.94. So how's that number so low?
Per kid or per house?
Yep. That's the census. So,
okay. Well, so the numbers I looked at were for the state of Ohio. Are those for the state of Ohio or for the United States?
Board.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to be wrong.
I'm just curious because I didn't know.
That again was brought to us by the.
It just doesn't sound right. 0.7. Just you're a teacher. What do you think?
Because I also looked up that number. The number that has been mentioned a couple of times is considerably lower than.
So here's the way I would look at that. We're including the schools because we want the schools to be taken care of. Strong schools make for a strong community. By putting 10% towards the schools, we believe that we're, in addition to all the property taxes that they're already collecting, right? And they'll get more property taxes on the improvements that are made. In addition to some school districts have an income tax, I'm not sure if yours does. They collect all of that, and then in addition to that, we're putting this 10%. So we can play around with those numbers, and you can certainly put those numbers into your equation, right? But we feel pretty confident that we're taking care of the schools pretty well.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's against that. I just don't think so the 18,000 per kid is probably more like 8,000 per kid.
Should be.
Well, the other thing is that anything we do, and I think I speak for all of you, we're going to do in conjunction with school. I mean, everything we've done so far, I've met with the school superintendent at least 6 times just this year of everything we're doing. So then we'll continue.
The way to think about this is growth is going to happen, right? And today they're getting their property taxes and whatever other levies they have, right? And that's what they would get on new development that comes in, unless we do something like this, right? So to me, it's a win all the way around for the township, for the village, for the schools, for your fire department, and for the people who are moving in as well.
Yeah, it's our plan to move forward with Walnut Township too. We have met them, and we're going to a meeting the first week of December.
Good.
So we can move forward with them because we're in a unique situation where.
Yeah, you got a little this, a little that.
Yeah.
Right?
So.
Yeah, and it's so the way we're looking at this as we deal with the townships and the villages is to say, here's a village, and we want to create a partnership with the township that surrounds the village to the point where the school district boundaries are, right? So the Thurston Walnut deal would be for the Liberty Union School area. The Millersport Walnut deal would be for the Walnut schools. Eventually, we'll get to a deal with Pleasantville and Walnut in the Fairfield Union School District. And 5 years ago, if you'd asked me to name all of our school districts, much less know where the boundaries are, I couldn't have done it.
So then we will get in, with the Walnut.
Right.
Township.
On the NCAs and stuff like that, yes.
Yeah, I would recommend that. And they've been through this process now a couple times, so they're seasoned at it. And we've already got a template for both the CETA and the NCA that would be fairly easy to plug in if you all, and you can tweak it however you want it, but it's already, I'd say 90% of the way done.
And where is that? Is
Whereas,
it online or are you going to give us?
Jeff has a copy of.
I do. I see Attorney Ricketts.
So Mr. Ricketts, I don't know if everybody knows him or knows who he is or what he does, but his family was one of the founding families in Fairfield County. You know, the Ricketts Hall and the fairgrounds. Rick's mom was Mayor of Pickerington. Rick's dad was Violet Township trustee before the wars. At least I think it was before the wars, right?
Partly gone.
Okay, that must have been fun at home. Rick understands development and taxing tools and how all this works better than anybody that I've met in the state of Ohio. And he's been incredibly helpful, taking no pay from me or anybody else to do all this work. I am incredibly grateful to him for everything he's done. And yes, he's provided Jeff with the documents that we've got today.
Jeff, I have a question. The different partnerships that you mentioned, the combinations of the municipalities and townships, have most of them updated their land use plans and zoning codes as part of that process?
So Lancaster had just done that. Others, yes. The Village of Thurston is just, I think, about to update their zoning. They've got a meeting next week, I believe, or the week after. A joint meeting with Walnut Township, but they're laying out their new zoning code. Listen, we have invested a good bit of money and a tremendous amount of time trying to make this as easy as possible for the villages and the townships to do the work that otherwise would cost you a year of your time and anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 to do it yourself. And that was at the request of, where'd he go? There he is, this guy. When we had our very first housing symposium, we invited all the townships, all the villages to come in, and we had a bunch of speakers, experts from different fields come in and talk about the growth that's coming and what we can do to plan for it and all that. And this is 2+ years ago now. And at the end of the meeting, you know, the homework was, okay, go update your comprehensive plan for the village or the township and go update your zoning. And he raised his hand, and I think Lonnie Koch from Greenfield might have raised his hand and said, we don't have the resources to do that. So the county took it upon itself to create that comprehensive plan. And we took it upon ourselves. I had a whole team that was traveling with me. You guys remember we were upstairs on the stage and all that to try to help everybody understand we're not forcing growth on anybody. We're just trying to plan for it, manage it, and take advantage of it, right? So I feel when I talk to other counties, they're 2 years behind us. And they're trying to catch up, and they're asking for the Fairfield plan, right? So I feel like we're doing the right things for the right reasons. Pretty much everywhere we've gone, people understand, you know, what's coming and are looking to try to figure out how to manage it.
Anybody else?
Gar, I know you love to talk.
You guys mind if I ask?
Yeah.
Jeff, you said giving 10% of the 5 mil to the to vehicle. If we get together with the village on our heads, could we make the NCA or the CETA mandatory for them to do development in our
Yeah, so I'm gonna answer it, then I'm gonna ask Rick to answer it, but the way I understand it is if you set it up in your zoning code or in your land use plan, that any development that happens within this area on the map will be part of an NCA, then it has to be part of the NCA. Rick, am I portraying it accurately?
We'll make an over map.
You could make it the entire township. if you want to. I don't know if the entire township is Liberty Union Schools.
I think that's not
Close. But, I know there's a little bit of Pickerington schools that leaks in, right?
They want to go to the school districts.
And you could draw the entire township and just, if you want, include Pickerington schools and that little notch up in the northwest that they have in Liberty Township. Or
I think we have 5 school districts.
okay, well, we can carve it up that way.
Yeah, Watkins is involved.
It would probably make the most sense because
Watkins.
really worried about where the school bathrooms are.
What would be the advantage of giving the developer back 10%? I don't, that doesn't sound intriguing to me at all.
So Rick, I'll let you answer that. You're better at this one than I am.
First, you need to understand that NCAs have typically been developer driven, which means the developers are the ones that promote within the NCA, and they're going to drive their agenda for what they want to pay for it. In many instances, the uses are appropriate. In many instances, they're abusive. The major thing that we're doing with what we have done in Fairfield County is we have said we're not developer-driven NCAs. We are a community-driven NCA, which means that we set the budget as to where the money should go. Having said that, you do have to remember that all developers are going to look at it as whether or not they have a profit center or not. And you have to make the market economics work. And every developer is going to look at an NCA and see what is the tax. And as long as it doesn't deplete their market share or send them into an unprofitable development, then typically they're okay with it. But most developers typically do want something that says we're the hallmark of an NCA. And typically that means it's an upgraded subdivision or upgraded development. That could be as simple as having street lights of a specific nature, landscaping of a significant nature, and a dolled up entranceway. But typically a developer says, if I'm going to charge my residents an additional 5 mils, then what are they getting back in return for? And historically, it's always been developer driven in terms of where the money goes. We are going to have some pushback if we go too far beyond acceptable means. And that is kind of where we're just balancing and trying to say, how are we going to effectively utilize the dollars and not piss off the developer?
Well,
if I may, I just want to add to that, without getting too far into the weeds, one of the mechanisms that comes about as a result of creating an NCA is that you will appoint to the board of the NCA. You will, depending on how we structure it. Usually the schools have 1, you have 3, you have 3. We can figure that out, right? But that NCA board is a governmental entity of itself and needs some funding to have a lawyer, right? To, they need money to, if you want to do some kind of significant improvement, create a bond, things like that.
I guess for me, when it comes to developers, and I've said this, and a lot of people don't like when I say it, but if you want to come here, it's going to cost you money. So I don't give a shit if we give.
Well, most people in this room aren't interested in enticing them.
Right, and we're not,
I don't feel it.
Yeah, we're not. And so I don't care. I want them all to have NCAs. I think anything we do should have an NCA. I wouldn't give a dime back to developer. He's not going to come build houses here if he's not making money.
I also noticed that most of this included a 2% income tax. Current ones don't have that. Those dollar figures you were talking about, that include the 2% income tax.
Yeah.
So without that, those numbers are all significantly different.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the income tax is what drives the NCA. And for a township, it's one of the ways that you can actually get to an income tax CETA, but you can't get to an income tax on residential in a township without an NCA. So that is a significant upside for purposes of any township. And I have been publicly quoted, and will state this again, any township that is not implementing NCAs is not in vogue.
Right.
Mr. Rippetts.
understand when Mr. Fix was talking about the hypothetical, about the percentages and the splitting of it up, 40 goes here, 40 goes here, that the statement was 10% goes back to the NCA. We're not saying that 10% goes to the developer. We're saying that 10% goes to that new community.
Yeah, because the new community authority is its own political subdivision. So it is going to have a certain level of overhead itself. Okay, that is going to need to be managed. It will have to do audit financial statements. And if you look at the pillar of NCAs, it would have to be the New Albany Community Authority. And the New Albany Community Authority was so successful that they had to greatly reduce down the amount that they were charging because of the levels of success. They started at 10 mils, and they're down now about to 3.9%. And if you're in New Albany, they don't charge an income tax other than what New Albany already charges you. So every situation I've been in, you have to try to tailor it to fit the township and the village and the situation for how you want to do things. That includes every school district. You have to look at the dollars that they get per person from the state, from their own income tax, from the federal. And then you look at it and you say, how many kids are coming in? And you look at how you're trying to balance the equation for the benefit of the school district. It's fairly easy in Pickerington because Pickerington does such a huge demographic number. Those numbers that we're talking about in terms of how many kids, literally the Pickerington school system can tell you how many kids are coming out of each subdivision. So you can look at high level detail. And if any school district that has that, you can determine exactly what's coming out of any project within that school district, and that helps guide you in terms of the overview.
And so, Rick, you might want to say 15% to the schools and 5% to the NCA area. I mean, I understand your concern.
We're going to cut our fire department in two.
Yeah. And
I say that, I'm not speaking for you guys, but I'm just saying that's what we talked about.
yeah, you guys have a unique situation here, as I described. And what we would, as we go through the conversations, if you choose to go down this road, we'd have to figure out how to divvy up those numbers, right?
Mr. Cameron has a question.
Right. How does the NCA work on affordable housing, or does it?
It'll work on any development by virtue of it being development. But the question is, then that doesn't mean that any township or any village has to necessarily allow that development to occur. It's going to have to still fit within the boundaries of anyone's jurisdictional zoning and land use to determine whether or not that's going to be allowed. If it is, then it is going to be subject to everything just as it would be if it was not a HUD project.
Yeah, but see, when you say affordable, which is low income, now you're saying, hey, we want 7 mills. That's a little bit tough on low income and affordable housing. Or 5 mills.
I'm not going to dispute that is not, in some respects, true. But foundationally, I look at this as being community. And this is part of the reason that I think you have to look at the township, the villages or cities, to the schools, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to beat on each other. What we want to do is build a successful community. And I'm not saying that you can't have some level of affordable housing, but where you have opportunities for industrial and commercial growth, you damn well better get it, because that is what helps balance the equation to be able to provide levity for everyone. That's exactly right.
So the income tax piece, that is really on
Correct.
So let's say that Johnny builds a house and he's an NCA, and a year later he sells his house to Susie. The Susie also have to pay that back.
Actually, the NCA is in perpetuity. It's been written in perpetuity. So effectively, now the way that we have drafted ours, and they can all be drafted however you want to tailor them, the way we've drafted ours, it has to be actual development. It will not be someone splitting a 2-acre lot and building a house. That wouldn't be covered under the definitions of the ones that we have done to date. It would actually have to be the equivalent of a subdivision or the equivalent of a commercial or industrial project that is going to effectively use utilities. But once you're in it, you're in it. And it actually is recorded of record so that it is binding against any future property.
And to be clear, subdivision of anything is more than 4 square parts per acre, correct?
The way that we defined it, we didn't even go that far. We kept it back more towards, it's gotta be a subdivision. So if you are the person that does 4 splits and then next year does 4 more splits, those still will not be included as a definition in development under what we have done for the other townships and villages.
Yeah, rest of them have to file subdivision.
Pretty much.
But you could change that.
Yeah, you can write it however you want it. It's whatever's appropriate for your jurisdiction. But understand that once you write it, you can make changes, but in the way that we have done our documents, and they can be changed and negotiated. If you want to make any kind of material change, then it would have to be approved by all the parties to the CEDA and the NCA, which in most cases means the township, the village, and the county commissioners will all have to approve. And the reason behind that was to say that in theory, you're going to have people that are appointed to serve on the NCA board. And if there is going to be anything material change, especially in the context of taxation, it ought to be the elected officials that only have to approve it. So that's the way that we have it bracketed. Now, candidly, there's a lot to these agreements, and that is why we've spent 4 or 5 meetings with most of the townships and villages trying to go through them and make sure that it meets what they want. And not any one of them is exactly the same, because they have been tailored differently for each township and village. So it can work in whatever fashion you want, but the big picture that I bring to the table is I'm tired of communities fighting against each other and letting the developer win. We have to come up with a model that allows the community to win and make sure that we have good growth and planned growth. And candidly, all you got to do is go to Violet Township, Pickerington, and see that it failed. It failed. It did not work.
Would, if we were to go together with Baltimore, would our zoning have to meet Baltimore if we each have our own zoning?
Now, one of the beauties of this is you can keep your own zoning codes. And what I like about this, and I'm going to give an example using Liberty Township and Baltimore, is it used to be that Baltimore had the likely industrial development and commercial development. Right now, if I foreshadow the next 20 years, Liberty Township on the north end and on the south end over towards the Carroll School District, you guys have the likely industrial developments happening at those locations. And you have the ability, provided that people can work together, to bring that industrial tax base in, which is good for everyone. And in return, if the village is going to get a piece of that activity of ground and it would never actually be able to annex, couldn't annex up to 70, can't annex down to all the way down to
310 and 204
or south. And candidly, I think maybe Carroll Northern is probably going to be your immediate hotbed. What the village gives back to the township is to say, all right, we have projects that are going to happen naturally where it could be annexed in. And it reduces the tension between the township and the village because they're giving a part of their newfound money back to the township. And in theory, you're working more collaboratively together and saying, by adding this piece to the school and the component, you're saying, look, we're not out to screw anyone. We're out to make this a better community. And we're going to allocate dollars so that there is less desire for a village to fight a township and completely eliminate the ability for a developer to negotiate a township versus a village and be able to come up with effectively bottom line more dollars for the developer.
Now you guys know why I bring them along.
What's wrong with it?
You know?
Tough question for both of you guys. When we first sat down, Mike was going to talk with us. You talked about the NCA. There wasn't a single mention of CEDA. When did you guys start adding that in and why?
There's a couple reasons, and Jeff's reasons may be a little bit different than mine. First off, I think that everyone needs to recognize that commercial industrial development is important to what we're attempting to accomplish. You need to bring that into the picture because it develops tax dollars and is not bringing kids into the schools, and it's providing good paying wages that does provide for good dollars to come into play. So to me, when you think about an NCA, many times you think it's for residential purposes. And I don't want to have that being the focal point. The NCA is a great way for any village or any township to be able to get income tax dollars on residential development. So when residential development is appropriate, then the NCA helps bootstrap that. The reason that I like tying them together is because it is the whole nexus of an NCA. If you look at the statute, it is to develop a community. It's to enhance and improve a community. And that to me is what you're doing. And I like to add the component of let's not forget about economic development as being a key to us making the numbers all over, whether it is the township, the city, or looking at the schools, especially.
To me,
Start adding that in to the equation.
as we started doing this with different, with Lancaster and Greenfield were the first ones that we started working with. And it makes sense to me because it ties the two governmental entities together, right? The NCA becomes its own governmental entity, and it can go off and be its own thing. But establishing a cooperative economic development agreement between the township and the village puts you in it together. All right. So
I don't recall this being mentioned at the meeting. If you're trying to get to the timeline, I don't believe it was mentioned upstairs previously.
no, this is yeah. So this came about within the last 6 months when we started the conversations with Greenfield and Lancaster. We were at that table, City of Lancaster, Greenfield Township, Regional Planning, our economic development team, Tony Vogel from our utilities group. And we're all having these conversations about how this makes sense. And Holly Matty from our Regional Planning Commission suggested that it would make sense to include a CETA, and she gave compelling reasons why. It's just another layer, and it made sense to us. And it really just defines the terms of what you're going to do together.
The township can do an NCA on its own under current law, but that is not the bigger part of the community from my perspective, which is why I advocate the townships and the villages or city all need to work together so that they are not fighting each other. To me, having a township do an NCA on its own is counterproductive to the collaboration that we should be seeking to build our communities.
I don't think it can work in Fairfield County, Rick. You don't have enough population by the statute. You can't do a township one without 200,000.
That was my understanding, was that it wasn't even an option.
You're at 178,000 last census I looked at.
For an NCA?
For township only NCA. It's not, there's only like 4 townships in the state of Ohio that meet that qualification. They have to have 5,000 in the township. You have to have 200,000 in the county. Fairfield doesn't.
But by partnering with the village, they can't.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about just the township on its own. It's a little exception to that NCA law. That's my understanding of it. And correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I'm not. I would have to check on that because I was not aware of the 200,000.
Yeah, so it's getting there, but it's not there yet. They can't do it on their own. So
Rick or Jeff, I have a follow-up question. I didn't mean to cut you off.
go right ahead, Jeff.
You sure?
Yeah.
So assuming that a village and township both want to collaborate and create an NCA and a CETA, procedurally, what has to happen in order for that to be accomplished?
So what I would suggest is that you collectively say that, and then we start, Rick and I and that team that I just mentioned with regional planning and utilities and economic development and representatives from the village and representatives from the township
sit down and start hammering out these agreements, right? Like I said, we've got a good part of the work already done. You've got a draft of that. So we're not starting from ground zero. But really it's a matter of sitting around a table and having the tough conversations about, well, what if this? What if in 20 years this were to happen, right? We try to get through all of that as best we can. And then you would bring it back to the village. The township would bring it back. And if everybody's good, you vote them through. There's a hearing in there somewhere. And we can walk you through that whole process. But the most important thing is for you to say, yeah, we want to create a partnership.
And an informal approval is fine for that, or do you request or suggest resolutions by those entities to
date?
Yes, we want to
to date, we've not had those resolutions from city, village, or township that have been involved in our conversations. Rick and I and Liz just last week were in Greenfield Township, updating the entire township, right? All three trustees, because only one of them can attend these negotiations. So we took them through, how we got where we got, why we got, and what makes the most sense. And so, that's all part of communications, all part of the process, right? And the more we're talking, usually the better we are.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Can we advertise open meetings and have their board and our board together so it isn't 2 in 1?
You can. When you try to negotiate with 6 or 7 of them and 3 of you and the public sitting there, that's going to take you 20 times as long as if you just sit down and you or one of your guys and the mayor and one of his guys. And we can do it any way you want. I would not recommend that's your best method. Now, when you get to the point that it's time to talk about here's the agreement that we've negotiated, then yes, absolutely, public meeting. We'll come out and do our presentation. You do your presentation, answer all the questions of all the public. Absolutely. But negotiating in public and negotiating with an entire township trustee board and entire village council, that would be pretty rough.
Anybody else? We gotta see if we're gonna play nice with the township trustee. Really, what's left to say is we gotta figure that out, because I think it's all in all of our best interest. And
all we're really doing is laying the groundwork. Not a single farm is selling or growing or anything. We're just putting the rules and the guardrails in place if and when it happens.
So what, if I may, what I've suggested to some folks in this room is that starting those conversations and sitting down with me and my team isn't going to cost you anything but a few hours. And as we go through the process, if it turns out that you can't find a way to meet in the middle, or it doesn't make sense for you, or it doesn't make sense for them, you can stop. But I think sitting down and talking is wise.
You want to take 4 minutes.
Can I sit here and talk, or do
It's pretty loud.
This is as loud as I get. I won't speak for the township. I'll speak for myself. I'm Don Keller. I'm a township trustee. And I appreciate Jeff's time tonight. I hope I never ever hear again, it's coming, so get ready for it. We know it's coming. The township itself, we were elected and entrusted with the township's business. So we need to represent them and what they feel. A big worry in our township is housing developments all over the place, people all over the place. And so with our zoning, you've got to have 2 acres and you've got to put a house in, you're probably going to put a well in the septic in. And with that, I've said to the others, if there's 2 houses there that are on smaller lots and they're paying $300,000 for those houses and they're paying taxes on those houses, we can also put $1/4 or $3/4 of $1 million house there and they'll pay the same taxes. We have less kids, less cars, less emergency runs, less people for the police to deal with. And in the township, that's what the people want. We also put together an area that we were comfortable with the village annexing out to, and trying to keep things centered around town. As a personal note, my personal deal is that I think this town that has so many rentals and so many lower income people, how do we help them out? And I think if we revitalize this town, if you want to put housing developments right around the edge of town and include them in town and include them to your water, and maybe not take county water, sewer, that's fine. But as they branch out, there's going to be a housing development maybe here or there, but maybe not multi-floor apartments out in the middle of the township, stuck in the middle of nowhere. And so we had drawn a map and we gave it to. Okay,
but we never really sat down and looked at it. But together and
right. And that was our thought for progress going around and where we thought it would fit best around when the county came out with their land use plan. We also came out with our own. It varies in some, and it's similar in other places. But it's, again, we're trying to represent people that live in it. The same with our zoning. And our zoning doesn't allow high density housing.
Right.
And that's the thought of the people out there. So if around town the high density housing works, that's a great place to have it. And again, it's not that we're saying no to something. We're saying we want to direct what happens and where it goes. And hopefully the town is going to do the same thing. We don't want to drain anyone, we don't want the taxes to go up. We don't want all this housing to come in with no commercial or industrial to help support. That's what Pickerington's biggest problem was. And so I don't know what you guys are doing to try to promote that stuff, but I hope that you're thinking of those things. And so as you go forward, that it's not all just housing.
Right.
When we look at, I don't know for sure what your water and what your sewers are. Okay. We hear both sides of it.
For sure.
Facebook is famous for it. But when you bring all this stuff in, I guess the one thing I haven't heard for sure yet, well, this is where all the money comes from. But what's the cost of putting that development in? What's the cost of putting that house in to the town, to the township? How much do we know we have to invest so that we know we're getting enough money back? Because I believe in Mr. Fix's proposal that we're very light for the school. Because I think we get another 100 kids in there. Next thing you know, they're going to want $6 million to build another school. And in 15 years, you may get that back, but we have to put that up front. And along with the school, they want football fields and tracks and everything that goes with it. So I guess as the township, we're not trying to say what you're doing is right or wrong. We hope you don't do the same with us. If we can come together on this so the growth is good and there's good communication between all of us, that's the best way to be. So it has been enlightening to listen to Mr. Fix tonight, and he's certainly helped me with a few things. But I know I don't want to seem like the jerk sitting in the back that's got his heel stuck in the dirt. But there's some people that elected me that I need to take care of, as well as my own thoughts on the township.
You don't have to be that guy, I'm like.
Okay. I'm right behind guard.
Frankly, some of us appreciate that you guys aren't allowing that more dense development because we want that buffer. We don't want you to see that.
Right.
Mayor, can I address some of that?
Yeah.
Sorry, Rick, I didn't mean to cut you. So that's the beauty of this whole deal, right? Is that you don't have to build residential because it's going to happen around the village.
Right.
And they're not going to put a good sized factory, right? They're not going to put a Google right in the middle of town, but it's going to be up on the northern border where you have the land, right? And so by partnering, everybody gets the advantage of the industrial development and the commercial development, and everybody gets the benefit of the residential development that goes on around the village. No one's suggesting that it makes sense to put an apartment complex in north central Liberty Township, right? Not suggesting that. And I know that's not what you're talking about.
But I also, where I'm different from you is that I don't see it benefiting right here in town. Restaurants, businesses, stores in town. I don't need Google up there that I need to make 5,000 houses for. I need someplace in town that we're going to grow 4 more people, and they'll buy a nicer house. Maybe they go out in the township and buy a lot and put a really nice house out there. I get the same thing and I've improved my town and I've improved the area for my people without bringing Google or Intel or someone like that into my world.
Right, and so what I'm suggesting to you is that the financial advantages of allowing something like a Google or Intel to be in your township will make it so that those folks who live in the town that you represent, or live in the township that you represent, will never have to vote in favor of a fire levy again like they did last fall.
Can I ask you what the effect then is going to be on Canal and Pickerington with DHL shutting down?
Well, that DHL is shutting down certain warehouses, but that one is full go.
Well, I'll tell you this. I don't think anybody sitting around this table wants a Google or anything like that. Do we want some? I can tell you, I mean, around here, I'm just speaking around here, but I will tell you, a lot of what's happening between here and 37, we're still working all that stuff out. Is there thoughts on commercial stuff out there? There is not big commercial stuff, but some more stuff than maybe what we have, and it's better that it's out there. Maybe some bigger stores or something like that. I think this comes down to what all these people and you guys, we have to agree to be partners. So like the NCA on Liberty Ridge, we didn't even think, obviously we're on townships. And then if you guys end up building a big warehouse up there on 310 and we get some of that revenue as well, because it's in the township. So I think it's in all of our best interest to come up with some kind of agreement between the village and an agreement on that, right? So with that said, I'm going to be very specific here. With that said, any other annexations that we do outside, we need to talk about it a little bit more at length. And I think that's what you're talking about too, right, Donnie? So we need to talk about it a little more at length before we do. We say, hey, because you said to me, particularly about the parcel out there on Beverly Church and 158, you guys said, look, we're not against you doing it. Let's just take a minute and breathe about it and say, let's come up with a plan, like a long-term plan, maybe a 15, 20-year plan. That's what I'm getting from you, right? Okay.
I'm just glad, sorry, Rick, I'm gonna cut you off, but I'm just glad that Rick and Marshall brought up about the NCA, that we can't do it alone, you can't do it alone. And it's gonna be a joint effort for all of us, as far as the township and the village, to even think about doing it. And I'll have to agree with what Rick said. In that southwest corner over there, it's coming this way. I may never see it. I don't know. Same way as up in the north end. Who knows what's going to happen up there along 70 and Palmer Road. But at least we will, I think we'd be ready for it. And to me, it's a win-win situation on the NCA. I mean, that's my opinion. But I just want to point out, I'm glad that they brought that out to let people know that we can't do it by ourselves.
Any of you guys have an opinion on any of those? Brandy?
I think future planning together.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Well, we all want more commercial, but when you do a market study on this market, it's not going to get you commercial like a restaurant or whatever unless you have more rooftops. So just saying we don't want more housing, you're not going to get more commercial without more housing. It's just not going to happen.
So I guess we know the nuts and bolts of some, if you're all right with talking
Yes,
about it.
let's talk about it.
So, have you presented that map at all?
No, because I wanted to.
So we brought a copy of them tonight.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's what I wanted you to hand it to.
So, I guess, so this is kind of what we were trying to think. What we could easily see you guys inside the now, obviously, this is something that we have to negotiate off. This is not fine, we're gonna have to do this way or we're gonna walk out.
Right.
What I think our best proposal would be, or I think the best way we could move forward with this section, is that if you guys are willing to, postpone on the annexations in our township, then, we have a developer looking fairly hard for moving rapidly out at Westwood.
Right.
So our thought is we kind of hold them up. If you'll hold up your annexation, I feel like I think it was a misunderstanding before.
It was.
We thought,
We already talked.
yeah, we thought that you guys were kind of where we were ready to basically start figuring out what, and I don't think we were quite there yet. So if you guys are willing to, table the annexation, then we're gonna hold up out there and we're gonna try to figure this out, I think the biggest thing is we need to draw some lines, that we're all comfortable with. You guys look at some borders, we look at some borders. Obviously, we're gonna take the schools into account on some borders, but like that development on Westwood or the one up on Heimberger Lane, I think that should be very appetizing to the town because those are not things you're going to annex anytime soon. Whereas if we go to develop them, you can get a hold of that some tax dollars there pretty quickly. So I guess I personally have some concerns. I know you said to do it with one township trustee, a couple council members. I think that's part of where the miscommunication came up. I think it's going to be better if we all talk some more, maybe not the whole time through, but I don't think we're quite, I could be wrong, but I don't think we're quite ready to just go, one-on-one per se. I think we need to have some more open meetings because, I hope you guys feel comfortable saying to us what we feel comfortable saying to you. We're not going to agree on everything at all, but it's okay. We just talk about it. It's better to do it face to face and get it out than it is to, go nip at the coffee shop about it. So, I think that I think we can make this a really good thing for the community. I mean, it comes back to like what Jeff said about affecting. We're going to grow, and there are people in your village and in our township that cannot afford another dime of taxes. And if we can do this to some people that obviously can't afford it, then that's going to be very beneficial to everybody. And I just think we need to figure out between us how we want that to look. And then we start forming it with their help into what it needs to look like, I just think that would be, in my mind, and if I'm wrong, you do say.
But I mean, everybody on council agree with that too?
Absolutely.
I mean, I just feel like it's the best. It's just, well, what we have to do is we gotta have, because I come to your meeting all day long.
Yeah.
But there's six, I just hear what you say. There's six people that really make the decisions. And we need to have conversations about this. But I think just like face to face, why would we just need to do this together? I mean,
one thing that is frustrating to me, we hit this first road bump on this property with annexation. And where I get frustrated with that is, I don't know how it was presented to you, but it was never presented to the township in any way. So it kind of comes back to go right with what Jeff said, the developer working against us. Let's call them the developer. Well, we have no idea what they even want. Right. So they were kind of using us against each other from the go because we never had a chance to get our heads together on it, About the Keller property.
No one really did initiate before the talking began.
Yeah, before.
And they approached us.
Initiated before any of these talks.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what's frustrating because I don't understand why they came to you because they don't know whether we would have said yay, nay, or whatever, and never had the conversation never came. So
they actually said and wanted in, and so I said it to Jeff.
Right, and I understand. I mean, it is what it is at this point, but if I think you guys did us a very honorable thing by tabling it last meeting, and we appreciate that. I do, and if we can leave that table, like I said, we're going to try to hold up ours, and let's try to make this how we can have it good for both of us. And I think
county involved now that having to do with the money.
I think two things I'll agree with you said, or one thing you said, we need to have the fire department involved, and I think we're right on the schools. I think those two things are going to be important because I think you guys want this to be a place to live. I know I want it to be a place to live, and families are going to bring kids, which I think we all want. I mean, we can get down through here and name, many families have many generations living around here. I think the families that come here are going to continue to do that. I mean, to some extent, when people come here, they don't leave.
Right.
And there must be a reason for that.
Right. We just need to keep that to be a reason.
Yeah.
Well, and I have a question as to what is the problem with the Keller? I don't know.
There really isn't a problem. It's just, I guess, and maybe we misunderstood. It comes back to understood. We thought we were trying to everything was on hold with you and with us as far as moving ahead on anything. We were kind of working out the NCA, and maybe that isn't where we were. I don't know.
As far as I know, he doesn't have what he stands for.
Well,
That's what he said.
yes, I know. He's sensitive to a lot of different people. So, yeah.
And that was initiated before we started talking about the NCAs.
Yeah.
Now that we're talking about partnerships,
Yeah.
we're gonna be partners, we're gonna be partners,
Right.
not on selling, not on.
That's how I feel too. 100%.
That's the thing, we're either all in.
That's the bottom line.
And I can't do that, I personally can't do that. We're gonna have to have another joint meeting because that's just, it's easier for you to make a presentation like tonight to everybody sitting here than it is to just talk to the dummy man. I'm just saying, it's easy.
We all need time to digest. You know, we all go home and think, well, what just happened tonight, you know, and how we want to move forward.
Right.
What you guys think about that map? We know what you guys are thinking. You know,
We may tweak it,
I guess we don't. I guess I.
you know?
What do you guys think? I guess.
Well, I don't know, to be honest with you, we have this map in front of us, now we need to digest it. You know, we need to digest it and go from there. I don't even know that we want.
With the holidays coming and everything, do we want to try to get anything more done this year, or do we want to start fresh after the first year?
Yeah.
And try then?
We only got one more meeting.
So maybe we'll talk after first and set.
Yeah, and we'll set up something else, yeah.
Yeah, and so the county's happy to participate at whatever level you guys want. If you want us here for a bunch of public meeting negotiations, there's gotta be pizza.
Well, I would want, what I'd want to do
On the counter.
what I'd want to do first is have council agree with the three of them. When we come to agreement, then we bring the county in. And that's because we're just spinning wheels, we can talk about all this stuff. Yeah. The council, but yeah, so let us digest.
I guess
By the car, and then we.
I'll be 100% transparent with you. You asked what the problem is with the annexation. There are two things that we didn't know, and I mean, I'll just say I didn't know. Maybe these guys knew, but we didn't get done. So I guess we should have had a road use maintenance agreement. That's one thing which we don't have, and we would have to go back to the drawing board on that with Bible Church Road being the number one road. That's one thing that isn't done, and that will be harmful to both parties. Sure. And you know, the second thing is, you know, what are you guys using for utility corridor on the annexation?
As far as, well, like that, because there's no plans out there, we don't really have.
The developers are responsible for the utility.
Yeah.
So, but how are you gonna get it?
Until an engineer presents it. It hasn't been engineered.
I thought what they want. I was under the impression you had to have a utility corridor before you could annex.
No.
So you can annex and just.
Yeah.
We don't know whether they're gonna come back and say, we wanna build a warehouse here, we need 2 bathrooms and a fire suppression system. Or they're gonna come back and say, we want 200 houses, we need this. So until they propose a development, it's awfully difficult to have V3 or anybody say, this is what you're gonna need for utilities. But regardless of what they need, it's on their dime, not ours.
Right.
I guess not what they need, because what path are you using to get them there that is in the village?
Well, I mean, if you're talking like east of town.
No, I'm just talking about specifically in California.
I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any.
Old Park, yeah.
Old Park, yeah.
You can't get utilities to Old Park. It's in the deed restrictions. That can't be used as utility corridor.
So it's most likely that they go north on 158, but it's not in town, it can't. Until
right. Well, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
The water line already runs north of me.
Yeah.
And so 6-inch water is already out there. I would assume that in the foreseeable future, we would loop from Basel Northern across Roland back to 158. And that sewer basically already runs to me, probably large enough to support that. And it's gravity. So we could probably go gravity over to the church. Now, a lot of those aren't, some of those properties aren't even in town. So that isn't really our problem on how to get that there.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough.
All right, well, we're on the same page, right?
Yes, I believe so. Okay. You want to do it? You want to work it out?
Yeah.
All
right. Well, with that said, the visitors want to go on, you can go on. Because we've got the rest of the meeting to take care of.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, thanks, everybody. Yes.
Where's the beef? No pizza.
No pizza. Thank you all. Appreciate you having us in tonight.
Hey, are you, planning to go on Sunday?
Yeah, wait a minute.
You guys ever have any questions? I'm on the economic development team for the county. Look forward to it. Thank you. Very nice meeting
Okay.
Village administration reports.
Well, we're back. Village administration report. Their report, the only thing I have to report is that the paving line is done. We have about 50% of the which has been done. Hopefully here in the next 2 weeks. That's all I have to say. On the village administrator report, I would say see Matt's paper that he gave us all, a list of everything on it. Fiscal officer, do you have any report?
No.
Mr. Solicitor, do you have a report?
Just briefly, thank you. New pieces of legislation have already been discussed in committee. In regard to the first one, that is to employment agreement with the new mayor's court prosecutor. I would recommend that council consider suspending the 3 reading rule and adopting that on an emergency basis, as those sessions are every 2 weeks. And that there'll be another session before council meets again. With regard to the ordinance reappointing me, I'm happy to serve again, and if council desires it. I serve at council's pleasure, and the 2 years is required by the ORC, the Iowa Revised Code.
Well, I will tell you, we got to figure that out, just because I mean, if I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, I gotta.
Does that need to be, is that, it has emergency language, is
Yeah.
that just?
It's so that it can go into effect immediately, because my current contract expires at the end of the year. We have 1 meeting left besides tonight, so, and I'm fine at going to the next reading as far as that goes.
I see.
But it'll have to be addressed then.
So one way or another, we end up.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the second reading on an ordinance amending chapter 240, which is the employee manual, in order to provide an increase in the annual safety food allowance. And then several tabled ordinances, one of which did have a public hearing on it this evening, which is ordinance 2024-31, and that's to amend the zoning code, non-conforming uses, to provide an updated definition of damage and destruction to a structure. So unless Brian disagrees with me, that ordinance can be untabled and can be approved.
Yes.
And it's my understanding that one of the other tabled ordinances, the first one, 2024-23, general development standards, home occupations, that was reviewed by planning and zoning, but they did not approve a change. So I would recommend that remain tabled, because I'll need to research that and see what the options are of for council to address that. Is that correct, Brian?
That's the home occupation ordinance.
So they are saying it's not required then?
They recommended we do nothing.
Basically, what they basically said, I think, what you've told me was it's hard to enforce, and we already have a process, I believe, right? On the sort of a process.
I don't understand, apparently, because if somebody, okay, let's just say, Matt, I have a neighbor who's gonna be, and it's pretty good, it's not from my house. And so she's running a babysitting business. She doesn't, And you send her, and you go over and say, hey, you have to register with the village. And she comes over and says, well, show me a policy that says I have to. We haven't.
Correct. It's actually different than that. If I could throw in, just because, well, again, I said it before, I was the code guy when all this started. It's, if you take a step back, she can't even have a business in that house because it's not zoned for business. So that's the start of it. That's the start of it, let alone the register piece, because Terry just couldn't get people to, like, we didn't have the teeth to go to somebody and say, you can't run a business in a residential zone. That's why we have zoning. That's why we go there. So you can't have one. So before you even get to the register piece, it was the fact of you can't run a business out of any residential thing. So that was really the piece.
Childcare in particular becomes a very gray area.
Whatever it is, but I'm just saying, but take the childcare thing out and just say, it's a business in a residential, that's why we have zoning. That's why, so if the guy wanted to put a gas station in right beside your house, you'd also say, what the heck are you doing? I don't want a gas station beside my house. I live in a residential neighborhood. It's the exact same thing. That's the first level of all of this. Then the registration piece, which is so the village knows you're doing it, it's been through the county and all that, is a whole nother thing. But you can't even get to that until you start at the bottom, which is in a residential house, you can't run a business. It's not zoned for that.
So that it will be so you can't run a business involvement.
And yet in the code, it recognizes home
and that's a
occupancies
weird thing.
and even has examples given.
My only problem with this whole thing is if I bought paper plates and I drew faces on them and I wanted to sell them out of my house and I advertised art and craft something, then that's a business too, right? I'm selling it on my house.
And you're paying the 1099, so you're up.
I'm just saying, I don't know where you draw the line there. That's the problem with this whole thing.
That's
where it started.
Is the issue the traffic though? Is that what we're getting at?
That's why the zoning is, yes.
Is that what we're getting at? Is it truly the parking?
Well, I thought it was.
So then that would be a report to local authorities, correct?
I can't do anything about people can park wherever they want.
So
yeah, so I can't do anything.
Blocking streets or what have you.
Well, if somebody's blocking the street or blocking the sidewalk,
Well, you can pick up and deliver for 30 minutes.
The main issue is that we in the zoning, it is in the zoning.
It is in the manual. We've read it.
That here's the guidelines for it, but now you're saying you can't have one.
Because they're saying not to do anything, just
Right.
leave it
Yeah,
like
they
this.
leave it as is.
Well, it's nothing right now. That's the point.
I just think there's so many gray areas. I mean, I police it.
So what are you gonna do if somebody comes to register the home business?
We'll have them fill out a zoning application and it'll check the
So
box.
you'll take registration.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Last time, didn't you guys say that if they put this on their taxes, home childcare, you can report to read it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there you go.
As soon as they do that, then we copy that because we get the name of the place and the business and we send that to Rita so they're aware of it.
Right.
And if we know of a home occupation,
just makes
we do
sense.
ask them to
It makes
register.
no sense to have guidelines for it and not have and some kind of legislation to say that you have to do it. That's like, I don't know, it makes no sense to me, but okay. Cool.
Well, and what I'll do is put together a memo for council because there is a provision for overriding the decision of planning and zoning, but I've got to do a little more research on that. So,
All right. So let's go to village council reports. Finance.
Mr. Mayor, we did not have a meeting tonight. The next meeting will be December 9th, at 6 p.m.
Service committee.
Mayor, we've met tonight, discussed all the water plant, sewer plant, many other topics. Things are moving forward to try to clean some of that up.
Safety.
Safety met, not much on the agenda. We'll meet again January 26th.
Any rules?
We will not meet tonight. And I don't know. December 9th. December 9th.
Public safety department. Do you have anything further to add, Chief? Bottle joint fire. Wayne is not here. I'm sure they will meet again sometime next month. Village committees and commissions, planning and zoning. We did talk about new hiring of building inspector and so forth. That's part of that. Tree commission. I think Steve is working diligently for this spring for what to do, what he's doing with the grant money. Records commission, nothing. Okay. The bicentennial commission.
I actually do want to ask you, Matt, has there been any communication with you
About the, yes, I did. I received an email late last week, and I was in communication with her with some of the questions we had about that.
Okay. Other than that, we're just kind of in a whole.
Right. And I told you where I'm at. I'm not lack of trying, though. Understand that.
No.
All right. So let's go to motion. Have the first reading. First reading ordinance 2024-44, ordinance authorizing the mayor and the village administrator to execute the employment agreement with Castle Triplet for the I don't know how to pronounce that. Provision. Okay. Prosecutor services to Baltimore Mayor's Court.
Did I spell it wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
The declaration of emergency. And we need to put that into the declaration of emergency. I need a sponsor for that.
No, Schaffner's sponsored.
Oh, okay.
Schaffner's both of them, both in there with.
Okay.
This is, as Jeff explained earlier, we previously did this, but that prosecutor moved on to greener pastures now. And so we need a new prosecutor. We need it quickly. So I would move to suspend 3 reading.
Yes. Can we get a vote on
that? Schaffner?
Yes.
Foreman? Yes. Phillips?
Yes.
Coster's in here. McCreary?
Yes.
Reedy?
Yes. Okay. And now I would move to adopt ordinance 2024.
Okay. Roll call.
Discussion.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I just read through there and I was just curious. I noticed the salary on that. It's
$125 per session.
okay. So because he's our
prosecutor
as needed, essentially. Oh, I'm sorry. 2024. Oh, these are both the same. I don't think okay. Never mind.
Yes. The previous prosecutor paid 125. The last guy agreed to 125, and she's agreeing to 125 per mayor. If we don't have mayor's court, they don't get paid.
No, I see that. These just have the same number, so I guess. Oh, they have the same number.
Two ordinances have the same number.
So I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's why I saw that.
So the next ordinance.
No, we get have a roll call on this.
Okay, roll call on this first one.
Schaffner,
yes.
Foreman,
yes.
Phillips,
yes.
McCreary,
yes.
Reedy.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know, is that what's the correct number for the next ordinance?
For mine is 45.
45, sorry. Did I?
All right.
Yeah. It's correct on the ordinance.
Okay.
Well, I did it quickly. I should have.
So the sponsor on that is Debbie, and the village ordinance 24-45, an ordinance to reappoint Jeffrey Fayco to the position of village solicitor for the village of Baltimore, Ohio, for a term of 2 years and to fixed compensation he be paid, and the declaration of emergency.
I'll go ahead and just move that we waive the 3 reading on this one as well.
Can I get a second?
A second.
Any discussion on that?
I have a quick comment. This is what I was wanting to comment on. So I was looking at Mr. Finko's salary, and you are at will. So approximately how many hours a week would you say?
Oh, Lordy.
A whole bunch.
Yeah, I mean, it varies from week to week, month to month, quite frankly. So, and I rarely keep track of my time.
I
So I just want to propose here. So I did a search. I wanted to see what the average salary is for a solicitor. The range is from 75,000 to 101,000. I feel like I'm proposing that we consider raising the salary. He's putting in an awful lot of time.
You would not have an argument with me because I don't think I have it.
I don't think he's had a raise for a while.
He got a raise. He did last
Not
year.
too long ago, but it's a percentage raise along with other village employees.
Yeah,
I just
at the end of last
feel
year,
like
when they give the other employees, they give
he
him.
is well underpaid.
And I have done a study before and discovered the same thing.
Average salary is 87,622.
Well, I guarantee
Just
you,
saying average. I
he
don't
doesn't,
know.
every time I call him, the many times I call him, that doesn't get marked down. I know it does.
So I am proposing we reconsider that salary.
So how do we go about that?
Oh, yeah.
Is that budget or where do we discuss that here?
Well,
We have another meeting.
we have another meeting, so you can just leave it as a first reading, and
Okay.
you can negotiate.
Well, everybody think about that because I agree with that. Again, I don't have a say on the real vote, but I think everybody that works for this village, everybody that's on every committee, we need everything to stay the same for a while, because we've got a lot of things to take care of, obviously, this evening was
Can I withdraw my motion for the
Yeah.
Or do you want to?
Yeah, especially if you want to amend, which I will not oppose.
I mean, so yes.
Okay.
So we're just leaving it on, you're withdrawing your motion.
Yep, so we'll talk about that at the next meeting. All right, so then I move on to the second reading to the next ordinance, correct?
What's that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
second reading, ordinance 24-43, ordinance amending chapter 240, the employee manual of personnel policies and regulations of all codified ordinances in order to provide for an increase in the annual boot safety allowance. Mr. Foreman, you are the sponsor on that?
Yeah, I think we all kind of know what this is, to increase the allowance, and we let the guys spend on fourth boots, and we can just leave this on for third reading.
Okay, the third readings are none. Do I need to read the table of ordinances?
No.
No.
You can read it. You can, you're not required to.
So the table of ordinances, we know that we already talked about all of this.
Well, the
We're
31,
on tabling one of them, 31.
That's right, yes, I'm sorry. All right, ordinance 24-31, an ordinance to amend chapter 1236-07, planning and zoning code, non-conforming uses and damage and destruction of a Baltimore codified ordinance and declaration of an emergency. Ms. McCurry, you are the sponsor. If we could pass that.
Well, you need
You
to.
got
Yes,
it.
I'm moving that we take this, untable this particular ordinance 2024-31.
Okay, any discussion on that? It was what we had to,
That's the one about the,
Conforming.
yeah, which we had the things tonight to the open meeting, yeah. Which is which is a reasonable request.
Yes.
So if we untable it, roll call on that.
McCreary
Yes.
and Phillips.
Yes.
Foreman.
Yes.
Reedy.
Yes.
Schaffner.
Yes.
Now we need to go back and vote.
Okay, so I move to accept ordinance 2024-31.
You mean adopt?
To adopt that.
Roll call.
We gotta have a discussion. Sorry.
Discuss.
I know,
Roll
but
call.
okay. Let's see, McCreary
Yes.
and Foreman. Phillips.
Yes.
Schaffner.
Yes.
Reedy.
Okay, is there any old business that somebody would like to discuss?
Yeah. So if I say to Matt, or if anybody calls and says, Matt, there's a guy next to me in his garage working on a car all the time. That's what he does for a living. You don't even go and you say, well, that's okay.
We need you to register.
No, because.
No, I'm saying that's what currently it reads.
What-
I would say you need to register. I can't make you register.
Right. I just feel like it's a slippery slope.
What is the goal? What do you want the ultimate goal?
Like, I would like the ordinance to match up with the guidelines. If we're gonna have guidelines as to how to, have a home business, what the qualifications for a home business is, then I would like there to be, either there is, we're allowed to have them or we're not allowed to have them.
I think that was part of the difficulty is defining what that is and what it isn't. I mean, it was a whole group of people. It was very difficult to define. So we feel like
and what happens then if he gets tipped and they say, and they don't have to, then he would notify me. I'd send an email to Rita and say, hey, is this guy
the same thing as when
yeah, is John Doe is operating a garage out of his garage, is he paying his taxes on that? And they'll research that if he's owning and doing a business.
There's still nothing we're going to do.
And if he is, then he is. And if he's not, then
I think it's different if they put a sign out there or something like that. But I just don't know how you establish who is and who isn't. And it's not for you to, if you come to my house and I'm babysitting 20 kids and I tell you they're all my cousins or my relatives, who are you to say they're not?
Well, with regarding the sign would just, we've got sign requirements.
Right.
There's actually a residential neighborhood sign ordinance. Right. It can't be bigger than 9 square feet. I believe. Right.
Any other discussion on that?
But even then, we wouldn't go to.
The thing is, you're thinking of all the businesses that don't cause problems, like you said, Tupperware.
Yeah.
Okay, but when the guy opens a welding shop right beside your house, and has all this steel delivered out there, and he has all this stuff, and you say you can't do that, he says, she's doing it. And then that's the problem. I'm trying to get to a point. You're using all the stuff that doesn't matter instead of the stuff that does matter. Like you can't have a gas station in downtown business district anymore for zoning. But if I wanted to open one, I'd say, well, you're not following zoning over there.
I feel
so
like
I'm going to put my gas station right here.
This is
do something about it.
I mean, that's more about, and
that's the problem.
Determine it more. I don't think we can pass an ordinance or make a decision until we.
That was the problem with my business. It's not zoned.
I'm just gonna say one thing. Every village and every town around here has.
Just fix the zoning. That's the thing. If you want to use it, if you don't. That's all. Because where do you get it? Where do you end up? Ralph Reeve, if you knew him, he was the big zoning guy, and he just always said, I don't care what's in the book. I just have to abide by the book. Like, if you want to build a business somewhere, whether I like it or not, if it's in the book, I'll give you the permit. I don't care. If it's not, I'm not going to give you the permit. It just change the book if you don't like what it is. So if you want residential houses to have businesses, then change the zoning and make all residential business. And then you don't have to worry about it. Or go the other way and say you can't have a business in the house. Either way, but your zoning it's nothing. You're not following any of the zoning. So when someone has a problem with it, what do you say? What do you say? Because they go, he's doing it. And
my business is allowed to be in my. I'm not allowed to do that. I tried to get it rezoned so I couldn't do it, and they think it passed.
Yeah, and the maybe same place, and I could probably come around and show you about 10 other ones at minimum.
I was gonna say.
I mean, that I could just go like this with. So that's where you are with it. Is if you're not going to have zoning, then don't have zoning. You don't have to worry about it. And then people will build stuff wherever they want.
Well, that's kind of my point. I mean, why don't I just take it out of the zoning code? Like, leave it in the zoning code and just say, but we're not going to enforce it. That's the funny part. Everybody's saying, well, you can't enforce it, but you put it in the zoning code. So I don't know. I'm just confused. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I guess I thought.
What's that?
I said I thought we are enforcing.
Somebody said the last meeting.
I'm enforcing it in the sense that I'm asking people to register,
Yeah.
but there's no teeth in it. So if someone says, no, I'm not registering, then I go, okay.
So therefore we don't have that, we just, I mean, Jeff just said, we cannot enforce it if we don't have that,
I thought at the meeting we said we're gonna leave the language very basic,
Right, we did.
which was not untabling it. It was simply, we weren't gonna try to define, because that was where everything got murky.
That is the whole message.
I mean, that's the whole issue. I think all of us are in agreement. We want it to be enforced. But we sat there and we're trying to define what is a residential business versus non-resident. It became, and it's listed. I mean, we can pull up, which we're not doing tonight because it's too late. But in the zoning manual there, it's listed. I mean, it's pretty specific. So the one that we discussed, it was very minimal, which is what we have, which.
the ordinance, or what were we discussing, the ordinance itself, or the.
We
list
went
of
into
stuff?
the zoning code and we looked specifically at the zoning code.
I think the ordinance says, all it's saying is home businesses have to register with us. That's all it says.
But then it goes into a list.
No, it doesn't.
No. I'm talking about the zoning.
Huh?
planning and
No,
zoning.
the ordinance says.
Yeah, and that's what we wanted, was just.
Well, that,
I thought that was currently on the book.
is that currently?
There's no penalty.
Right. But currently, you have to register your home.
Yes.
Well, I know you
There's
don't.
no
That's what that
requirement.
ordinance is gonna do.
So if
This
we,
ordinance would have.
But that, all that says is, all that ordinance says is home businesses have to register with us,
Right.
period.
I
That's
thought
it. There was,
that's what we agreed upon.
Right.
We said, we're not gonna sit here and try to define it,
You didn't say
but
specifically.
we do want them to. So
that's all that says gonna
So
say.
then the conversation became, so what are we trying to accomplish with this?
Mhm.
If we're trying to accomplish getting them to pay their taxes, then it's really not gonna do that.
Right.
And if it's trying to say that they
Well-
can't have their own business, so that's a whole different conversation.
But then this gives it more teeth.
If they register, it's gonna get sent to read. If they don't register, then
It
unless,
may or may not.
may not, yeah.
Okay, so it goes back to,
Penalty.
And some communities do that. When they do updates or when they adopt a similar ordinance, they put teeth in it. So they say, okay, here's the fee you're gonna pay. Here's the penalty if you don't register. Here's the penalty if you're in violation, that sort of thing. So, and I think I provided samples of that different.
But you have anything you want in the home business.
Yeah, I mean,
I
currently,
mean, like we,
I think
it all.
some of that's listed, right?
I'll have to review it again, but there are some examples already.
We could give it teeth though, right, Jeff?
yeah, oh, absolutely.
can we table this and discuss?
Yeah.
it?
It's still tabled.
So we'll discuss.
Tomorrow I'll send out a copy of that to everybody.
All this ordinance is gonna do is just have them register and have us to develop a form and have them register with us.
But as Jeff just mentioned, if we amended it to possibly tie some type of fine or what have you.
Right. Well, it was the teeth.
And some communities define here as permitted businesses, and that's it. I mean, that defines what the businesses are.
Which is what we really could not think of.
Right.
I do like the idea of having a fee.
All right. Do any visitors have anything else to say?
Well, we're talking about if that's amended. Okay.
And Ryan, you have down here, the next meeting will be the 4th Monday, I believe you mentioned.
Yeah, it's second Monday. Second Monday.
December 9th.
December 9th.
Do I have a message to adjourn?
Oh, I'd like to.
There we go.
We have a second.
Who made the motion?
Discussion.
Who seconded it?
I did.
Okay.
No discussion.
Thank you, everyone.
Turn. 8:45.